School and district offices will be closed Thursday, November 25th, and Friday, November 26th. Dr. Blake, special acknowledgements.
Yes, I have several this evening. I'll start off with a shout out to Catherine Morris. She's an art teacher here at the high school. Actually, she's working district-wide this year. She started a project. She came to me in early October asking if she could do a project that would put student artwork around the downtown area. And so she, fleshed it out for me. We took a look at it, and I said, this is a perfect idea, great, opportunity to showcase some of our student art. And she launched the Art All Over project. So you'll see in different downtown businesses artwork from throughout the district. So it's all grade levels. And it's going to be an ongoing project that she'll be doing throughout the year. So if you see some of that artwork downtown, you'll know where it came from. The second piece is shout out to Lori LaFrance. She is a recipient of one of 5 Presidential Innovation Awards for Environmental Education. In your packets this evening, there's under the consent agenda, there's acceptance of a check that she received as part of that for the school. And then finally, our students, our athletic teams have gone very deep into the postseason this year. We actually have our girls field hockey and volleyball teams playing in the state championships on Saturday. I believe one is at 11.
In Woburn.
Field hockey's at 11 in Woburn, and volleyball's at 1:30 in Tewksbury.
So
Oh, you can catch both.
You could catch both.
could
Yes, you
potentially. Yep. So, and that does it.
Thank you. That's a good, I love the art all over. I'll be looking for that shortly in town and encourage everyone to look for it as well. The Presidential Innovation Award, you said it's one of 5. I assume that's one of 5 in the nation?
In the nation, yes.
Well,
Yep.
that's big. Thank you. Citizens' comments. Oh, wait, are there any other special acknowledgements? Nope. Okay, citizens' comments. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you very much. John Murphy, Medical Lane. I think it's actually queries. And I've always thought the bylaw calls for citizen queries before boards, commissions, and committees. You should say, you should begin by saying thank you. But I want to thank you all for doing what you do. It's a hard volunteer job, so we're all grateful.
Thanks.
I'm certainly grateful.
Can you speak up a little?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Louder?
Yep.
Okay. So I watched the meeting you had Tuesday night with the select board, and I had a question. I frankly was kind of confused at the end as to what the plan is, but I'm wondering if you've given thought to the issue of Violet Park. And what I took from the meeting was that you want to use the town meeting as sort of a barometer. And I don't think that's a good idea, to go to town meeting to ask them what to do. But what you can do is, as the statute allows for a non-binding public opinion advisory question that you can put on the ballot in the warrant. So it's, in other words, the annual town meeting warrant has Article 1, 2, 3, 4, everything you're talking about. And then at the end, if you read the end, it says, and also vote for the select board, the school committee, the town moderator, and different positions. And that's what we do a week later after the town meeting. That's actually the second session of the annual town meeting. And what you can do in Chapter 53:18A, and I'll go through it with you if you want, and town council can explain it. They've actually done this a couple times, is you can put a non-binding question on there for people to vote on in the polls. The advantage to that, as opposed to an article on the floor in the first session of the annual town meeting, is you can't amend it, and you'll get more people at the polls than you would at the meeting, right? I mean, what do we normally get at the annual town meeting, 400 or 500 people. You know, if it's a COVID meeting again, maybe, it depends on what's on the warrant, right? You know, so this last one was 500 people with the public safety building. Whereas at the polls, you could get all 11,000 voters in town. So it would be a more accurate barometer as to whether or not to do, and you could do two. Should we use Bollock Park? Should we use, what's the place over in Candlewood? The name escapes me.
Pony Express?
Pony Express. Should we do, you know, we put 4 or 5 questions on there. You know, and that way, you know, when these questions come up to town meeting, I don't know if you recall, but a few years ago, I was there. There was a meeting that just went off the charts on, do we do it at Doyon or do we do it at Winthrop? And, you know, when these issues are on there, people come into town meeting more with anger than anything else. It's been my experience. And when there's confusion that drives it, it's just not a good thing. So it's I take the warrant that I get, right? I don't have a choice in it, I just get it. But my suggestion is, toss it around with people, is to do it this way. You'll get a better barometer, you get a larger audience, and it would be just straight out. So
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions if you want. Otherwise,
Great, thank
we'll
you.
see you at town meeting.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you. Are there any other citizens' comments tonight? Okay, seeing none. Caroline Jepson, our high school representative report. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Hello, Ipswich school community. A lot of exciting things have been happening at the high school. For one, all of the fall sports teams are doing excellent jobs this year. And as Dr. Blake had said earlier, the volleyball team continues their undefeated season. They won their semifinal games the other evening and are headed to the final championship game this weekend. The girls field hockey team has also won their semifinals game and is on to the final championship game this weekend as well. The boys cross country team also got 4th place out of 28 teams in the Division 3A meet and are on to the All-State meet this Saturday. Additionally, Amelia Stacy from the girls cross country team got 10th place in the meet last Saturday and will be moving on to the All-State meet as an individual this Saturday as well. In terms of clubs, the 40% Club continues to have Music Mondays, where they play music in the school lobbies on Mondays, which is always nice. The Environmental Club continues to host marsh data collection events, beach cleanups, and hikes. The Green Team continues working on the Hello Neighbor refrigerator project, and were recently asked by the Boston Globe to interview 2 students about the project. The Interact Club is also in the process of organizing their annual Jingle Bell Walk, which will be put on at the Town Hall gym. In the arts, the middle school had a successful production of the play Mary Poppins this past weekend. Also, the Symphony Orchestra, which is the regular high school orchestra combined with select members of the band, rehearsed together today in the PAC for the first time since 2019, which was very exciting. And lastly, I wanted to mention the Art Around Town project with the different high school students putting up their town and putting up their art in local businesses around town. And thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I got to see the middle school play, and always blown away by the production and the professionalism. It's an incredible production.
It is.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The stage set was with the chimney scene over London, and then the park scene. But the chimney scene really got me. It was just like, wow.
Yeah, and when they've done, I think, Peter Pan and The Little Mermaid in the past, they've also done really nice jobs.
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
set
So,
and
so
music.
it's not only the actors who do a great job; it's
Yeah.
everybody involved. It's really good to see.
Yeah.
And just a quick comment about the field hockey team. I know there's good karma for the Ipswich girls because not only does Ipswich have black and orange as a color, they're playing in Woburn, whose colors are black and orange. So wear your black and orange. You'll be well received in Woburn.
Brian and maybe Jonathan, there's a long tradition when teams win state championships in Ipswich that the fire truck will meet them at the border of the town and they lead them around town with the siren going. It's happened for years, so you may want to let the fire chief or the police chief know that we have a few state championship games on Saturday. You have to warm up the fire truck a few times.
Okay.
Get it
All right.
polished up and ready to go.
That's good to know. Yep.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
No.
So,
They're tough games.
We'll be there.
yeah, they are very tough.
All right.
All right. So next, thank you very much, Caroline, as always. Next, we have a different format for school improvement plans. We're all anxiously awaiting a joint presentation. Thank you, Dr. Blake.
So, good evening, and thank you for allowing us to present this evening. Historically, the school committee hears the reports and the updates for the school improvement plans that each school has. And in the past, we've done them where we did the 2 elementaries on one night and then the middle and high school on another night. This year, we chose to do things a little bit differently and do a more collaborative effort so you can see how everything flows together. So I'm going to start, if you want to jump to the next slide, please, Tracy, thank you. So we start with the strategy for student success and framework. This was developed by the Vision 2030 group 2 years ago. And as you can see up here, I'm just going to step away from the mic, but I'll try to talk louder. Down the bottom here, we have the annual school improvement plans that feed into the district strategy for district improvement, which is based on the district elementary ed plan and the secondary plan that was developed several years ago. And that all feeds into the district vision and vice versa. So this evening, we're going to be talking about the annual school improvement plans and the strategy for district improvement and how those two go together. And collectively, this sort of maps out how the school district functions, if you will. So we have all of this work, the philosophy of how the school operates and all of the operations of the school and our goals are based on the finances, the professional development, curriculum and instruction, safety and security, technology. It's built on all those foundations. Over here on the right, you see all of the different studies that we've had done over the years that impact this work. And then on this side of the slide is just what the update cycle is. So our annual school improvement plans are reviewed annually, but it's a 2-year plan. So you'll hear a little bit about that tonight. The strategy for district improvement is a 3 to 5 year plan, but we do review it internally with the leadership team every year. And then the district elementary ed plan and the district secondary ed plan are reviewed every 3 to 5 years, and those were just finished. Actually, the elementary ed plan was done, I want to say 3 years ago. The secondary ed plan was just done in the last year. And then the district vision will be reviewed every 5 to 10 years, but certainly we can do that at shorter intervals. So at this point, this evening, the presentation, the overview is going to, I'm going to have Tracy talk about the strategy for district improvement, and then we're just going to walk through each school, and each administrator will speak to the goals and objectives in their school improvement plans. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tracy and the rest of the gang. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you. So I'm talking a bit about the strategy for district improvement. As you just saw on the plan from Dr. Blake, it is a 5-year plan. This is year 4. That said, of course, we had the pandemic, so we have been looking at it with fresh eyes to make sure it is a match to our students' needs, and I've been really pleased to see that it was, in fact, flexible enough where it is a strong match to our needs for students this year. So you see our vision, you see our mission statement, and you see our theory of action. I'm sure for folks at home this is hard to see. This is available on the district website if you'd like to see the strategy for district improvement. So it's guided by 3 main objectives. These have been the same now for the past 4 years with one exception, which I'll share. So the first, meeting the needs of all students, and then you see the connected priorities. 2, creating innovative learning environments, connected priorities. 3, building best practices to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last year, that was about global citizenship, and we felt, given that we have started the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative this year with the team and building on prior work, that it made sense to move the language there to reflect and to match the alignment. The priorities you'll see later on, so here's an example, indicated in all of the action steps. So you can see this is objective 1. There's those connected priorities. I'm happy to share this year that the elementary schools have shared action steps. Last year they were separate. This year they are together. And props to Amy and Sarah for collaborating on those, and to Kathy and John for working on the middle school and high school action steps. We created these with an eye to alignment as well. So you can read through these and you'll see them referenced. So it starts really big with the vision statement and the guiding principles, goes to the objectives, goes to the priorities and action steps, and the school improvement plans that you'll see are the on-the-ground this year, 1 to 2 year actions. So here's for objective 1. I certainly won't read over, but you can see how it follows the pattern for objective 2. And the same for objective 3, which is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when the principals give their presentations, you'll see how it's aligned to these objectives, and it all stems from this overall plan. This plan also has a new graphic organizer this year, which is thanks to a brainstorm from Kathy McMahon. Thank you, Kathy. I think it's a lot more user-friendly, and it is many less pages, thanks to this process. So we're going to move first to Sarah Goodale O'Brien, who is the principal of the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Tracy and Dr. Blake, and thank you to the committee. I'm honored to be first. I feel really proud of this work and how we're all relating the important pieces of the strategy for district improvement together. So the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School, this is our vision. Our vision is to create a joyful learning community of creative thinkers, innovative problem solvers, and compassionate citizens of the world. So before I get into the goals, I just want to explain that this year is year 1 for the Doyon School Improvement Plan. The school council worked this fall to take the previous school improvement plan and adapt it and apply goals that we really think are going to work going forward into what we want to say is post-COVID, but we know we're really still managing the after effects of that. So the first goal, which aligns to district objective 1, meeting the needs of all students. Goal number 1 is the social emotional health of students will continue to be at the center of instruction and community support at Doyon. We recognize that the pandemic has affected our students in ways that we may not fully understand. In order for students to pursue academic development, social emotional needs must be met, and faculty will pursue a continued examination of the social emotional curriculum. So action steps for goal 1. Words like continue are used here. We have existing SEL programs such as Responsive Classroom and Think Social used at Doyon. We're going to continue that programming but lean into it a bit more specifically, and think of ways to enhance and perhaps modify depending on what our students need. The second action step is about the student support team. The student support team is a group of specialists and teachers and myself that gather once a week to really investigate interventions and think about what students need. The student support team will continue, again, to do what it's doing, but we want to lean into it more, enhance interventions at the Tier 1, which is the classroom, and Tier 2 intervention level, and continue to work with special educators in the co-teaching model, and really thinking about how we can best support students. The third action step is to draw out some positive behavioral support models, thinking about student discipline. What does that mean in this age? And how does it relate to our social emotional work? Again, the Doyon community members, faculty, and parents engaging in discussion regarding the behavioral and developmental growth in students. And we want to create an updated policy with a goal to positively reinforce behavior and avoid bullying. Fourth action step, and this is an important one, implementation of professional development opportunities for staff in pursuit of their own social emotional health and a positive school climate. We know that in order to support students effectively, our staff, our teachers, everybody working at the school needs to also feel supported and able to do their best work with children. So on to goal number 2. Faculty at Doyon will investigate the current schedule by conducting a data analysis of how academic time is allocated at each grade level. Feedback on schedule formats, adjusted time on learning will inform a new schedule. So that's a goal that we have, is to create a new schedule for our students that is more conducive to student needs, allows for innovative learning, including opportunities for interdisciplinary and personalized learning. And that corresponds with District Objective 2, which is creating innovative learning environments. Action steps, using that data that we get in reading and in math, and working to adjust the schedule accordingly. How does the time flow? How are we able to intervene effectively? And how does our schedule allow us or prevent us from doing that? The Doyon faculty will study the effectiveness of writing across the curriculum. That's not just writing singular, that's writing across the curriculum in every subject area. And again, time spent on instruction in writing, really looking into that piece. Also a continued examination of our IM math curriculum, which we're on the 3rd year of at Doyon, how that relates to scheduling and the time that it requires to effectively implement that curriculum. And teachers will continue to encourage students to explore their math identities and pursue productive struggles. Okay, goal number 3, which aligns with district objective, building best practices to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a community, we will continue to embrace the cultural, ethnic, and gender identities of our students and families. We will continue to develop ways to honor identities and amplify marginalized voices within the school. Exposure to cultures, ethnicities, and other diverse backgrounds will be continuously integrated into the curriculum. Teachers will explore creative ways to build awareness of diversity. Our action steps for that are continued opportunities for professional development regarding Doyon's growing English language learner population. The Doyon community will embrace the consistent implementation of the world language curriculum, something really exciting that's going on right now. We want to continue as much exposure to the Spanish language as possible in the context of our schedule. Hispanic culture will be increased through the school day, and accompanying holidays or cultural traditions will be integrated. 3, previous work on understanding and using multicultural literature will be a focus with all teachers. The idea is that literature should provide a mirror as well as a window to students, especially young students at the elementary level, seeing their own identities, but yet being able to see outward to others. We want to pursue a continued exploration and integration of field trips and in-school presentations to enrich students' cultural experiences. Goal number 4. At the Doyon School, we recognize that communication and collaboration are at the core of all educational strategies. The last decade has spurred an increase in connection through educational technology, social media, and other communication platforms. We want to investigate the current communication strategies with the intention of increasing family and partnerships and student engagement. And also, in addition to that, is that community collaboration, informing group efforts designing to improve physical learning spaces for children, using what we have at Doyon and enhancing those physical spaces. Action step for this goal: enhancing consistent and cohesive communication techniques in the form of newsletters, possible social media narratives, and sharing of curricular information. This is an examination of what we do, and part of this goal is to create further goals to enhance these things. Outdoor education and playground initiatives. As you know, we sit on a beautiful plot of land. We want to enhance that and use that space. Also, an enhancement of student leadership team, SLT, in grades 4 and 5 that create numerous leadership opportunities and supporting these community efforts. Really, that's about drawing the students into this whole process. And last but certainly not least, thinking about the arts and bringing forward community-based art projects to refresh our physical spaces and enhance our community. So resources and supports for all of this, again, because we are on the beginning of year 1 of our school improvement plan, we are continuously gathering resources and supports and examining what we have and what we may have. Things like positive behavioral intervention and supports, which is a program that we will be bringing in and looking at. Of course, things that exist in the district already, the Compass Committee, which we're so grateful for, as well as the District DEI Committee. Teacher mentors, which I can't say enough about. We couldn't do what we do without those teacher leaders, bringing in new ideas and strengthening our programming. Our parent groups like FRIES, and other resources that have been brought into the district, such as Lynn Lyons and Responsive Classroom. So that's a basic overview. Shall we take questions now, or will they be all?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Any questions? Kate, go ahead.
Sure.
You first.
Hi, Kate.
It's
Yeah.
nice to see you and
Nice to
having
see you
present
too.
for us.
Thanks.
I just had a question about your anti-bullying policy that you're
Mhm.
thinking about. Obviously, we have a district-wide, the variety of policies around that, which we actually, I think, are going to discuss later this evening.
Mhm.
But are you hoping to collaborate with Amy on that and have sort of a?
Absolutely.
Is this something that's going into your student handbook, that sort of?
The hope is, and it's not, to clarify, it's not the anti-bullying policy, it's actually the step before that of thinking about how we handle disciplinary issues in the class, really to prevent bullying. I think it would really be useful to have some clarity on that. And again, that does connect to our beliefs about how we work with children in the school, connects to the social emotional learning piece. I think it'll be really nice just to look at it and have a little clarity of those preventative steps before we get to that bullying piece. So that's what that's about.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just had Emily, did you? I just had a question. I was looking at the exposure to Spanish language and Hispanic culture. Are we doing Mandarin in the?
So at Doyon, we have Spanish as part of our world language program.
Okay, I didn't
Yes.
realize that they were doing a different language then.
Yes.
Is that- oh,
Yes.
Okay.
So Zulima Martin, who is our world language teacher, she teaches Spanish to K through 5.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes.
So the two world language teachers worked this summer through Blue Skies Professional Development, so the Winthrop world language teacher and the Doyon, to write a shared curriculum that then looks different for Mandarin and Spanish. It's pretty cool.
Caroline has a question as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I
sure.
was just wondering, the world language program, are those Spanish classes that are starting in elementary school now?
Yes.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. And it looks a little different at each grade level. Like, for example, in kindergarten, Zulima or Ms. Martin goes into the classroom twice a week for 15 minutes. But then as the grades progress, she goes in for longer stretches of time, less frequently. And so she's really popping in and out of all the classrooms, and even in the hallways, you're hearing it now. They're starting to talk to each other, and even some of the teachers in some basic Spanish. So it's been really fun to see.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
So I have the boring question. the additional social emotional, are you providing additional social emotional supports than was planned for the school last spring?
You mean specifically?
Yeah.
So we are definitely seeing an increase in student need social emotionally, yes. Yeah, so we're going at it at different levels. The overall, really looking at the entire social emotional curriculum, the way it's presented by class or by grade, and then those intervention pieces of being able to go in and intervene with groups of children when they need support, and then also at the individual level. Yeah, so we're
Are you
really.
able to handle that with the staff you have?
So right now we are, but certainly it is our core focus right now. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Sorry. My question, and I'm not even sure who would answer this, maybe Kathy, sorry. If we're doing the two different languages at the elementary schools, how are we pulling that through middle school and high school so that students aren't from one school sort of tracking one language and then that's it when you hit fifth?
I think that Kathy will and can respond to that, but I'll say from a standards-based perspective, so the Massachusetts World Language Standards did not used to include elementary level, and as of 2 years ago, they do. And the research shows that at the elementary level, it's a lot about teaching students about diverse cultures different than their own. And so the standards speak to the language, the actual language that the students are learning is important, of course, but what's more important is actually the cultural awareness and the awareness of difference. So how we have it set up now would be at Doyon, they're learning Spanish. At Winthrop, they're learning Mandarin, a shared curriculum that has the same culturally based standards from the state. As they move to the middle school, believe it or not, they are getting time with French. So that by the time they go into the 8th grade, they are with a Spanish curriculum. So they will be arriving with the whole bevy of the state standards, a basic background in different languages. This is something we'll need to address over time, of course, but that's where we're at for now, and believe it or not, it actually does match the standards and the guidance from the state. So
no Mandarin after 5th grade?
I would love to have Mandarin after 5th grade, but as of currently, we do not have a Mandarin teacher available after 5th grade. If you know of someone, however, that would be amazing.
I struggle with English, so.
Yeah. Oh, no way.
Me too. Great, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Sarah.
very much, Sarah.
Good work.
Next up, we have Amy Sullivan, the principal of the Winthrop School.
Okay, so glad it wasn't first. You did a nice job, Mrs. O'Brien. I just want to start off by saying that the Winthrop School is in the 2nd year of a 2-year plan. And I am very grateful for the school council members, 2 who are here this evening, Katie Norris, one of our 4th grade teachers, and Ana Lagarda, one of our parent representatives. And I would just like to acknowledge how much they have helped me with my listening tour to find out what happened with the school improvement plan last year, how the goals were developed, and then how we can continue on this year. So Christopher Chapman, Ann Carroll, Michelle Hunton, Anna Lagarda, Jen Rita, Melissa Scaiola, I believe, I might be saying her last name wrong, and if I am, I apologize, and Peter Zetlin are current members of our school council. And last year, Jeff Poirier was a part of the council. He's moved on up. And also Christina Donahue. And then for our teachers, we have Melissa DeAndrea, Katie Norris, who I mentioned. Robin Weil was a part of the council last year, not this year. Carrie Zagarella, and of course I'm grateful to my predecessor, Sheila, for putting this together. So moving forward, part of a 2-year plan, our vision is we are a community of learners inspired to act with compassion, integrity, and joy. I wish I wrote that myself. And just on the last slide, I did want to just highlight our themes, which we have every year a school-wide theme. Last year it was resilience, very apropos, and this year it's illumination and trying to bring light and joy to all that we do. So our first goal has to do with academic impacts, and it was written around the idea of the disruption of learning during the pandemic. And it is to employ a variety of assessment methods to identify instructional weaknesses caused by disrupted learning. And it also aligns with two of our district goals, meeting the needs of all students and creating innovative learning environments. So our action steps fall under several different categories. Data analysis is something that schools always do. I can't think of a time that it's been more important to dig deep and to see what the analysis is bringing forward in terms of, is this something that is what we would consider a tier 1 maybe gap, if you will, or something that we didn't get to as much because of hybrid and remote learning, and therefore we need an adjustment to our whole curriculum or the majority of the grade, or tier 2, little extra supports, or tier 3, specialized instruction. You'll hear, I think, that MTSS theme throughout the presentation. And then obviously that we're appropriating budget and ESSER funds and everything else to help support the gaps and the academic impacts this year and last year. And then how are we communicating that to parents? Are we educating parents about support services that are available and what the processes look like when a student might need a little additional support or are referred for more support? So our resources and support, obviously ESSER funds has been huge. We know that that's not long lasting, but very, very helpful right now. This year we were able to add an English language teacher. We're still in the process of interviewing. We have been interviewing for a while, and we just increased that position to a full-time position as a result of ESSER funds. Resources, just how we go about a data analysis cycle, where we start, how we bring that all together at the school level. I mentioned the tiered levels of support. We also have really redone what used to be more of a child study process and now is what we call our response to intervention, or our RTI team. Much like what Mrs. O'Brien said, we meet to discuss students that we are seeing are popping and maybe needing extra support, and what can interventions look like. And I'm very grateful to Sarah Mitchell, our new student adjustment counselor, and also Alicia Thomas, one of our first grade teachers that really worked very hard alongside Melissa DeAndrea to put a process in place. And then lastly, we are looking at the DESE idea of acceleration in terms of finding where do we have to go back and add a little bit to our scope and sequence so we can continue forward for the current school year. And so our next steps, I thought it was helpful just in terms of thinking about all of those things. But our next steps include a lot of that. And I think the one piece that I didn't mention is that we really are going to be looking at revising the Winthrop classroom schedule and school-wide schedule so that we can emulate more of a what I need model or an intervention model, much like they have at some of the higher levels, so that we can easier push in to classes and perhaps also explore before or after school tutoring. Okay, so goal number 2, social emotional health. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive learning environment that fosters caring relationships among all of our stakeholders and provides check-ins to strengthen self-regulation. We were at the Rotary this morning with Dr. Blake, and they said, what are you seeing? And, absolutely that, children aren't the same as they were their last full year of school, which was maybe 3 years ago that they had that first full year. So if you really think of it, we have 5th graders that were 2nd graders when school shut down, and they missed out on a lot of how do you interact with each other, how do you sit in a circle, how do you interpersonally communicate appropriately. And so we are finding from a social emotional perspective that we need to help kids learn those skills that they would have had they been in school full time. So our action steps for this area is communication with our mental health team, which would be our school psychologist, and also our school adjustment counselor. We sometimes might even bring our nurse into that as well, and that we're continually listening to teachers, to what's happening, and to parents, and making sure that we have some systems in place. SEI learning opportunities in response to stress or trauma, or perhaps behaviors that we're seeing that are unexpected, is what we like to call it at the elementary level. Explore social coaching opportunities. For self-regulation, we did a lot when we were across screens with children in terms of mindfulness or motor breaks, and those things, and not to let go of those, but how do we continue a lot of the good work that did come out of remote learning, and are we doing that now that we're back in the classroom? And then supporting families, that we're addressing their needs, whether it's basic needs, that we're using good communication platforms to keep everyone on the same page, and that we're exploring different programs for families to come together as a community. So just as a visual, we were able to bring back Open Door this year. I mean, if you came to Winthrop today, you could have had an entire Thanksgiving meal. And they also gave every single person that went through the line a $25 food card for the mobile mart. It was absolutely amazing. We have tapped into Sheila McAdams' Wishing Well funds for families that have needed different items throughout the school year, so we're so blessed to have that. Winthrop Fries has been very helpful. We also have a Student Leadership Council, and Zones of Regulation is one way in which we teach children social emotional learning and curriculum. And also, I was super happy to hear about PBIS and trying to match up our tiered levels of support going forward and start to research some positive behavior intervention support models. So that would be a big goal going forward for this year. Okay, goal number 3, social justice. I wanted to also just mention that on the school council we had a very passionate conversation of in what order do we want to present these goals, which is the most important. My scarf's falling off. And they're in no particular order tonight because I really couldn't categorize them in that way. But social justice has been a big theme in the district and at Winthrop. And this was written even before we changed the district goal this year. So develop common understanding through the use of shared readings, deliberate discussion, and protocols meant to engage in productive and challenging conversations. And so our action items in that are first is to research what works, what models are out there. The school council has done some work with that last year in terms of reading some foundational readings. The teachers in the past have had PLCs focused around social justice. Learning how to facilitate these conversations, whether it be with a greater community and stakeholders. And then there was also a lot of work that was done to look at how those social justice standards were embedded into the history social science standards. And those sort of rolled out as the pandemic rolled out. And so we're still working. They're a couple of years old, but they seem still quite new in terms of how are we going to align that to our teaching and learning. Citizenship, exploring how to be good citizens, and with that also really trying to take a look at Ipswich's immigration status and local resources, understanding how people came here, why they settled here. So we've been doing a lot of field trips and outreach around that with some of our local resources. And then an idea also to establish a common set of language so that we're using the same kind of vocabulary that really involves everyone, envelopes everyone in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we're sensitive to everything, and that when we decide on those, that we're publicizing it, we're using it, we're displaying it. So again, just a few visuals here. There's some pictures of some books that were bought for our library with new diversity, equity, inclusion topics and cultures. There was also classroom library book audits done by the teachers. I mentioned the PLC. The Ipswich Museum has been a great resource in helping with this particular goal. And the school council also decided that we would like to do a needs assessment survey in each of the areas of our school council plan this year to help inform a new plan going forward next year. And lastly, we have Connections, which is really the basis of a thriving school, and so create, strengthen, and extend ways in which students, families, and faculty connect with each other. So how do we communicate? We've explored different methods for communication this year. What do our systems look like, and how are we enriching the school environment? And really pleased to be able to bring back some programs this year now that we are back fully in school. So something that has been a nice success and we've got good feedback on is just sort of our change to a new platform for our newsletter that allows us to kind of blast it out and embed it in Blackboard Connect or translate for EL parents or even include videos. So that seemed to hit that goal. Looking at tutoring, as I mentioned it, Katie Norris is responsible for our ACE program along with Lauren Guzzi. This year we have 23 after-school volunteer-based programs that are going into their 5th week, I think, next week. 3rd? Oh boy, seems like longer. And we also are using a new app called Talking Points to communicate and translate with families that need that. And very carefully, we are using, with parent permission, Twitter or Facebook to share out different messages like our newsletters and things like that. And the Tiger Tube, Mr. Stafford, our nurse, helps with all sorts of videoing and all these different ideas that he can help bring to life. He has such a talent in that. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Amy.
Welcome.
Are there any questions for Ms. Sullivan?
I don't have a question. It's more a thank you to both of you. To your I'm taking Todd's emotion today, but I think the elementary school kids and communities were hit really hard, and you guys. I can't believe I'm getting emotional. I'm not usually this person.
You can't cry because I'm a crier, and then we can't cry.
I'm not the crier. No, but you guys, you caught our kids, you caught our families. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, your teachers, your staff. I mean, you've been incredible. So.
Really, I've
just
only
really
just got
thank
here,
you.
so I'm going to clap that direction to everyone over there.
Well, I can only speak from an elementary school place, and I think we gave you sort of little ragers back this year, and you guys have just been incredible and incredible rocks. And so, from a parent and a school committee member, thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anybody else?
How do you top that?
I'm never crying again in another one of these meetings, so somebody say something.
Bob's already proven it. It's effective. The strategy works.
It's hard for
All
me.
right.
I actually have you been able to, have you wanted to or been able to tap into the Wishing Well Fund as well for requirements? Great,
Yep.
fabulous. 2, your ELL teacher, you haven't hired, you've just said you haven't hired her yet. And
Yeah.
we've heard of the need, I think about 6 weeks ago.
Yes. So we posted for a .5 position. We had maybe 3 viable candidates to interview, and then only really 1 candidate that we felt would be a good match, and that person did not accept the position.
Okay.
At that point, our EL population is continuing to grow, so I did go back and ask Dr. Blake, and he graciously granted that I think our pool is limited because it is a part-time position and it's really not going to meet all of the needs, and there are needs in other buildings as well. So we did just go back and repost for that position, and I think as of today I had 2 or 3 applicants. I'm going to wait just maybe until Monday or Tuesday of next week because it just got up, and see if we have a stronger pool. It's always a tough position to fill.
Sure.
And certainly even tougher once the school year has begun and people are in roles. But we're very hopeful. I know Ms. Nyland really is also very hopeful to have
Yeah, I bet.
some additional support.
I bet. And then I guess this is for both elementary schools. One thing that, at least when my kids were going through, and then it continued after, was the global connections piece. There was an art project, an international art project, and this brings in other cultures to our kids, even though that culture might not be in the town. And it was a tent. What was that? Portal. That's what it was. The Portal project was phenomenal, and I know they had kids from Afghanistan on that portal, and
Not anymore.
yeah, but that was them. So I haven't heard much about that. I know that was a great teaching tool for the kids, and
I can speak to
joyous.
the portal just because Sarah and Amy might not be familiar with it. I believe there's actually issues with COVID protocol because it's an enclosed space.
Oh yeah, right.
Sad to say. So hopefully that passes and we're able to find a way to bring it back. It was like an immersive experience. The other piece would be the Art Link, which is the art connection, which I believe went on last year. It's going on year 4, I'm hearing. This would be the 4th year of it.
It's going to 4th grade this year.
Oh, it's going to
Oh,
4th
good.
grade. That's so
Great.
exciting. And it's amazing. So the students connect with a group of students from a different place in the globe, and they send each other artwork. And then they, through the magic of tech, can have a Zoom with each other and share
No,
and learn.
I've witnessed it.
So
It's
cool.
excellent.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff.
So that's
And-
still happening in conjunction with the
Oh,
art
good.
teacher,
Good, great,
Ms. Lay.
thank you. Did you want to add something, Katie, to that?
Yeah, there is. Anna's actually doing video pen pals with the
Oh,
Grace
cool.
program.
That's
So
great.
They're reading that community.
Okay.
We have pen pals in Germany, Tanzania, Uruguay, Guatemala, Spain, Australia.
Oh,
Fabulous.
that's so cool.
Okay,
That's
so it's
great.
all happening.
So alive
Great.
and well. How about that?
How's that?
How's
Great, thanks. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Good work.
Next up, we have someone who would be upset if you didn't clap as loud for her as you did for Ms. O'Brien and Ms. Sullivan. It is Ms. Kathy McMahon, middle school principal.
Tracy knows me quite well by now. And I need a stand because I have notes and I'm nothing without my notes. And I'm short, so this works perfect. I was thinking the last time.
Bring the mic over to you, though.
The last time I was in this room with Amy and Sarah, we were grueling them with questions for their interviews with Pav and Emily. So Pav and Emily, I want to say we did a really good job, didn't we?
That was fun.
Thank you.
That was fun.
That was
It
fun.
was. I mean,
Nice run.
it's good conversation, I thought.
I thought it was great too. We did a great job. All right, so deep breath here. So middle school, as you know, in any typical year, middle school is often the year where kids fall apart. So just add a pandemic into that, and you've got a lot of work to do. I'm quite proud of the work we're doing this year and how we've brought our students back, and I think you'll see that in the work we're doing. Tough work goes on, but we're doing it as a staff that's really proud of what we're doing, and we're doing it together. So far, so good. This is our mission statement. This is the first year of a 2-year plan, by the way. My school improvement plan ended last year, so this is a new one. Our mission is to create a nurturing community where students are encouraged to develop confidence as lifelong learners with the awareness and flexibility necessary to adapt to a changing world. How about that one? We strive to bring out the best in every student and adult in our learning community. A former superintendent told me once, work smarter, not harder. So you'll see that my goals are quite clearly aligned to the strategy for district improvement, because I feel like we need to really streamline what we're doing and not have 100 different pieces of paper with 100 different goals. It just gets us nowhere. So my goal is actually right from the strategy for district improvement, that we will ensure that all students are provided supportive and rigorous educational experiences that meet their social, emotional, academic needs. And the action steps are where you see the work that we're doing at the middle school. I'm going to actually do these out of order tonight because, as we were talking about with the return from a pandemic, that emotional health for students and staff is key. We spent a lot of time over the summer and at the beginning of the school year talking extensively about how we were going to welcome and invite students back. Oh, my time is up.
No, that's, I know.
Emily, thank you for being the timekeeper tonight.
You're welcome. Good night, Ipswich.
Drop the mic. Welcoming and inviting students back to the middle school after a grueling few years of education. So this was our goal at the beginning, not start off by doing anything rigorous, not start off by testing, not start off by collecting data, but just inviting them back, making them feel welcome in our school, making them feel good about learning again and being in classrooms, getting to know each other, forming relationships, taking time to go outside and play a game, take a longer mask break, and this really worked well for a lot of our students, knowing that we cared about them, we care about them emotionally as much as we do academically. So you'll see that that's that last one, but I'm going to pop back up now. Then after that, oh, I'm sorry, just to add some, that's why I have my notes here. Just some of the things we did with that. We're starting a 6th grade advisory program this coming Monday, where our guidance counselors, Sean and I, by the way, I want to thank Sean for being here tonight and also for everything he does within the school. He's an amazing assistant principal. We're so lucky to have him. So thank you, Sean, for being here. On Monday, we're going into classrooms along with our guidance staff, and we're going to start with a mindful minute. We're going to do this every other week on a Monday, and then pose a question either just about relationships or about mental health or about community, just to get students talking to each other, to model eye contact, to model respectful dialogue and civic engagement. So that's going to start Monday. My guidance staff is amazing. They're really great with all students, and we work closely together to talk about individual students, but also to talk about the health of the community and what we can do to improvement. So that's really exciting. We continue our TAG program, which we started years ago. Transition and Growth is a time where my health teacher co-teaches with the guidance teachers in 6th grade. So students in 6th grade health take TAG instead of health, and that's a similar type of program. We use project adventure type games and then discussions to talk about mental health, to talk about family dynamics, to talk about civic engagement and correct behavior. And it's really been powerful over the years. We've taken time to play. We had Global Play Day at the middle school, which we've started a few years ago. You wouldn't think middle school kids or teachers would like that, but they love it, and they ask for it every year now, so we will continue that tradition. Our after-school activities, I'm proud to say, are up and running. It feels like a school again, and not just a place where we stripped away all the fun stuff. So you'll see kids after school for basketball, robotics club, cross-country, math league. It's really a great place to be after school again. And we're hoping to keep that going. We're bringing in, Sean's been working on bringing in the movie Upstander, which is we're previewing now and hoping to show to students soon, talking about how to practice anti-bullying behaviors and what you do when something is happening in the school, where to go. And we're reaching out to parents. In my Friday emails, I often include something from the guidance department about resources for students who are having some emotional issues and where to go with that. So I hope that's been helpful. We're hoping to start a parent book club again, as I did a few years ago. We've read iGen, and we read Anxious Students, Anxious Parents by Lynn Lyons. I think I said that wrong. But we're going to actually pick this book, I think, 14 Talks by the Age 14. That was recommended to me by a parent who owns a book club in Beverly Farms. So hoping to have that up and running in the spring. Oh, one more thing on this. John and I are working closely with our teams for a more comprehensive 8th to 9th grade transition. We've heard from feedback from students and families that that's not the easiest transition, and we're hoping to do that in a number of ways. We've this year, a few teams of guidance counselors and teachers worked together to make a better orientation program, more complete orientation program. That's up and running. We're looking at common practices among expectations for grades, grading systems, and assignments, and also hopefully a mentoring program that John will talk about more when he gets to his slides. That is number 1. Oh, talked about the play already. Chubb and I were on a date last week.
We're the two lonely people.
We did. We met up.
Both
We
went to
were
the play
lonely
alone.
souls. We sat next to each other and enjoyed Mary Poppins together.
Yeah.
It was very nice. I didn't even make him buy me popcorn or anything. We just enjoyed it together. If you didn't see it, you really missed something amazing. The kids danced and sang and acted, and the sets were amazing, and the music's amazing. I heard so many people saying, I can't believe this is a middle school play. It really is phenomenal. But even more than that, I think when we talk about innovative learning environments, this is such a great example of students doing something they enjoy. Teamwork, talk about our successful habits of mind, collaboration, creativity, problem solving. We had over 40 students on the stage and another 20-something behind the scenes. And these are students from all walks of life, all coming together to really create something profound in our community. It's quite amazing. The costumes were amazing, the singing, the dancing. That the last number when they're, as you said, on the roofs of London, it was just phenomenal. So it's a good moment. And I was proud last year when we were able to do those plays even with COVID. We created with an outside stage and we got it done. So it's great to see that. So our second one is, our goal is creative and innovative learning environments, and you can't do that unless you've got rigorous curriculum behind you. So we're really looking at our curriculum this year, and in a number of different ways. We have brought the illustrative math program into our school, as I was here about a month ago talking to you about how that's transitioning to the middle school from the elementary schools. It's up and running in 6th and 7th grade and actually 8th grade. I told you at the time we weren't going to have it, but my 8th grade math teachers have gone ahead, taken the curriculum and started using it also because they thought it's that good. This curriculum is that good. So we're looking now at how to integrate it into algebra next year and what that will look like. Thanks to you.
Algebra for all
she was
eighth
gonna
graders.
cry.
We're working on
That'll
it.
make you proud.
That'll make you proud? All right. I'll try to get that done for you. We're also looking at our written language instruction within the humanities model. As you know, we started the humanities model maybe 5 years ago, and we hadn't looked at writing instruction at the middle school since before I arrived there. And we knew, hearing from many people, that obviously is something that students really need to have strength in when they head to high school and on to college. So having strong writing in all middle school classrooms is really important. We have a consultant coming in. Her name is Martha Winokur, and she was here today. She'll be here tomorrow also. She's working closely by going at each grade level, going into classrooms, pre-briefing with teachers of where they are, doing a demo lesson, and then after debriefing with them and talking about the lesson, the instructional strategy. They're able to watch her teach, and then they're able to discuss it, and then she's watching them teach. So it's really a powerful model for professional development. We saw an amazing lesson yesterday on investigative journalism in the middle school 8th grade. It was really, really powerful. They used Dr. Blake's face right up on the screen to talk about a fake story. It was quite impressive. He didn't know he was in it. And lastly, I'm really happy to say we have integrated computer science. So we wrote a paying grant last year with Tracy and Amy Gregory and Sean, and we in that have been able to hire a computer science teacher who is now teaching all 8th graders for a trimester during related arts block computer science. So they're learning HTML and Scratch and web design. It's really great to go in and see those students doing that. So she got started with that. Then we realized that we needed also to get it into 6th and 7th grade. So during what we call now the WIN block, people formerly know it as the PA block, but we renamed it this year. 6th and 7th graders are going in, and we hope to cycle all of them through that by the end of the year so that they have a taste of this. At the same time, Christine Henderson, our new computer science teacher, is going into 6th and 7th grade classrooms. So we have a short-term goal of getting through as much of the code.org curriculum as we can this year, but our long-term goal is to integrate it well enough in all 3 grade levels so that they have one complete computer science classroom behind them, and when they get to the high school, they can now head off in different avenues with computer science and have that interest now. We're going to try and pique their interest, but also give them some skills. So it's really exciting to see that. Really been happy with the way it's going. We also have other things like, sorry Tracy, a robotics club after school, 3D printers. We have makerspace carts that are being rolled in, you see, for the probability fair in 7th grade. So a lot is going on, and we're hoping to get an esports team up and running at the middle school and high school by the end of the year. So all good stuff. Goal number 3 is under those diversity, equity, and inclusion. you'll see a lot going on here also within the middle school building. Again, very busy place. Our first goal is to look deeply at our own practices and our own beliefs. So we're using our learning cycles work this year with Tracy and John and Sean and Leanne, our new high school assistant, and working with all the teachers at both schools to read this book, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, and to discuss it through learning cycles throughout the year. All of our staff members will have a copy, and we'll be using protocols and those meetings to really dig into this work and hope to make our instructional practices in our classrooms more culturally responsive. We also have, you were talking about earlier, French in grades 6 and 7 now. Caroline, you would love it. So 2 days a week in 6th and 7th grade for one trimester, students are immersed in the French language. I found this amazing teacher. She just fell out of the, I call her my unicorn. She speaks Spanish and French, and also Belgium. She's a really interesting lady, so she's got that program up and running. And 6th and 7th graders now will have French before they head up to Spanish. We thought French was really important because at the high school right now, those are their two choices. And only having a Spanish program in 8th grade meant that it was more biased towards that. So now we can hopefully keep the French program active and strong at the high school. I'm really looking into how to make sure our civics class in 8th grade gets some more instructional time. When we changed the structure of 8th grade a few years ago, it meant that we didn't have enough instructional time within that humanities model. So right now we're recognizing that that's a scheduling and staffing challenge. So that's another thing that's part of this DEI initiative that we have. I really feel like students need a strong civics class, and we know from the state that they have to have a strong civics class now. So we're looking into how to add more instructional time into that 8th grade. This year we did it with a little thing called Humanities Workshop that added 20 minutes for each student in 8th grade, but we're going to keep looking at that. And lastly, I mean, this relates so much to a lot of the SEL work we're doing. We have someone from Safe and Supportive Schools coming in the next few weeks to talk to our staff about supporting students from LGBTQ communities. We have our new health curriculum that we have adopted, but we're also waiting for new standards from the state to make sure we're doing that right across all 3 grade levels. We have a new EL teacher this year who's phenomenal, and she started what she's calling a multilingual leadership club. And also, there's going to be a multilingual showcase at Zoomies next month to showcase students who are learning a second language and how proud they are. Oh, we're not supposed to pronounce that?
Nope, we can say it.
Forget
The
that.
issue is they're afraid that too many people are going to show up.
Don't come, please.
They're afraid because it's going to be at Zoomies, and it was initially designed as a class activity, and now it's growing. It's wonderful. They may have to move the
We might
venue.
have to find a bigger place.
Yeah, they may have
Maybe
to.
we have a good problem on our hands.
That is a
Yep,
good problem.
yep. So just great stuff, great stuff happening in that room. And I'm also looking at making sure that my newsletters that go out are accessible to people of all languages. So starting to use that SMORE program that I think Amy talked about so that it can be translated into native languages for people. And then, so you'll see some of the resources we use, but the 3 main goals going forward in all the work we're doing is really to support student needs as we recover from the pandemic, to support staff and this new adoption of programs and curriculum, and to explore issues of justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion at the middle school so we know that we're creating a safe and supportive environment for any student who steps through the door. That's where we are. And
Great.
Emily, can you ding that again so I'm not?
The dinging was cute.
That's my
No,
wife.
I'm not taking the dinging. See?
Everyone's planning the Thanksgiving dinner, apparently, right now. Text messages.
Any questions?
Are there any questions for Kathy?
You had mentioned something about the bystander training or the anti-bullying. What was that name of that?
Upstanders?
Upstanders?
Is that right, Sean?
Yeah, so a
Sean
few years-
previewed it today.
A few years ago, we showed a movie called Life that was about the impact of social media on students. And so this movie comes from the same company that produced that, and it's called The Upstanders. I previewed it this afternoon with a few of our guidance staff. And for the most part, it was great. There were a few parts we had a few questions about. So we put our heads together and figured out some great things.
So Emily and Pav were talking about the interviews with the elementary principals. I remember being on the interview committee when you were hired, and I'm looking forward to the more. I'm happy to hear about your focus on transitions because that was the theme during when you joined the middle school as a principal. So I'm looking forward to hearing more on John's side, how that's going. But I think the theme I've just heard is a return to normalcy, in spite of the pandemic, especially with all of the extracurricular activities that are going on. It's really great to see
I would agree with that.
life start again.
For students and staff, I think a return to normalcy means doing education again, getting back into school, not only academically, but socially and with extracurricular activities. But
Right.
for staff also to start looking at curriculum and not just talking about mask wearing and hand sanitizers and 6 feet apart. I mean, those are things that I think make us feel good about being in education again, that we are moving along. We're moving on. We're making our educational systems better.
Right.
Even small things like, I know many schools are not letting students eat in the cafeteria together, and we haven't had any problems, and students are able to talk again, which is huge. You know, sitting 6 feet apart in the cafeteria when it's supposed to be a social, happy time to let your hair down and just be with your friends. It's not like that in other places, and we're letting that happen. So
Yeah, I see the outdoor lunch is being used as well, so that's great.
yeah,
That's phenomenal.
it's happy. It feels happy again. You know, we had to strip all the fun stuff out of school the last few years, and now we're adding that
Yeah,
back
I
in.
can tell. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right,
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Last up, we have Mr. Jonathan Mitchell, principal of
Do you guys
the
feel
high
like you
school.
need to stand to move? I get hard to this thing for a while. Give me time to adjust
Good
this
night.
microphone
Caroline, thank you.
for my shorter colleague. So it's funny that you mentioned the outdoor lunch. I was thinking today, as I was watching, I counted 55 kids outside at second lunch. And there's some kids way off towards the track. And I was like, should I go and get those kids to come back over here? But then I thought about, like, why? You know, they're out there, they're enjoying themselves, they're being themselves, and it hasn't caused any problems. So why be the heavy and force them to come back and at least sit in the furniture? So I think this being post-pandemic, we're looking at a lot of things that we used to do and asking, why? Why did we do those things? And so it's an opportunity to do some things different and maybe relax things a little bit, that we learned that we could let kids eat outside before and that wouldn't cause all kinds of problems. So it's a time to kind of examine what we did before as we try to return to what was normal. Anyway, with that said, Ipswich High School is a collaborative community that fosters equity among learners. We engage in the personalized acquisition of the skills and knowledge essential to becoming successful, contributing, and responsible citizens. So our first goal, I just remember this is year 2 of our 2-year plan, provide students with alternative coursework to prepare them for a livable wage without college matriculation. So a lot of you, if you've been on the committee, you remember that we're trying to reimagine our pathways, which in the past have been designed for kids who are off to a 4-year school. And so we're trying to make the pathways more about students who can learn a skill that's going to lead to a career that will pay a livable wage on the North Shore post-high school graduation without needing to enroll in higher education. I think it's a trend that's happening more and more often as kids look at the rising costs of college and saying, you know what, I don't want to put money into something that I don't know if I want to succeed in 4 years, and then be in debt for a long time. Instead, a lot of kids are going to trades and exploring non-traditional pathways to a good paying career. So we're trying to emphasize that. So our action steps: increase enrollment in new tech pathways courses. The director of guidance, Justine May, and I were to meet with a couple weeks ago, but I wasn't able to make the meeting. North Shore Community College, because we were looking for a curriculum sequence that would lead to an IT certification. And because we already have one for CNC machines, there's a certification that kids can earn at the end of that pathway. And we're looking to do the same for IT, because we've met with the Workforce Investment Board of the North Shore, and they said that IT is always in demand, always looking for people to fill those jobs. There just aren't enough people in them. So North Shore's got a great sequence, and we were wondering if could we eventually emulate that somehow. And we thought that maybe a way to do that would be to have co-taught classes. If we could bring in professors from North Shore to co-taught classes at the high school. And so we're in the very preliminary stages of that. So don't start crying yet, anybody. but we're looking,
I
we're
won't.
exploring that. Okay. I should have brought some onions to chop up to inspire people. So we started this by, we've clarified the language in the handbook, in a program of studies, which before they weren't a match, that they didn't always talk to each other. And we created the Pathways Coordinator position. It wasn't stipended, it was just kind of absorbed into Justine's new role as Director of Guidance. As Kathy mentioned, we're looking to improve the transition between 8th and 9th grades. The orientation was great this past year, very student-centered as always with NHS. And we'd like to create a peer mentor program, and that's something that I have to start exploring very soon, and part of that I'll talk more about in Goal 4 when we get to it. So yeah, action steps: improve preparation for increased academic demands is our second action step connected to that goal. I think we can move on, yeah. We have to address the recommendations as highlighted in the 2018 decennial visit from NEASC, most of which involved being more thoughtful and deliberate with how we integrate the successful habits of mind into our classroom instruction, and then assessing it so we can give feedback to both parents and students about how they're progressing towards meeting our successful habits of mind. So we have rubrics created. People, they like the successful habits of mind, but when they're taught, it's almost as like an afterthought. It's not something that's specific, because I think, especially when you get to the high school level, we have such academic, curriculum, content-based silos that we need to start to break down. And I think the SHOMs are going to be part of that in the future. Our fourth goal, we'd like to identify as part of our 8th to 9th grade transition mentor program, if we can integrate into that curriculum some instruction, some activities, some lessons about how to have difficult conversations about social justice and race. Because I think sometimes not just staff is intimidated by these really hot topics, but students sometimes are reluctant to talk about it with each other. So we're going to explore the opportunity to bring that into our mentor program. And that's something I'd like to do at the end of this year so that we can start next year with that mentoring program. And that was our last action step. I was very short.
Call me very short at the beginning.
That's right. Short height-wise, no. Short presentation-wise, yes.
Are there any questions?
What questions?
for Jonathan?
Yeah.
Can you give us any more detail on that peer mentoring? I'm just a little unclear.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name of it. So Hamilton Wenham's had a peer mentoring program they've done for many years. They've highly regarded program, and they come in and they can customize it however you want, pick topics depending on how often your advisories meet, because we would leverage our existing schedule where kids have advisory once a week. And we've already had our guidance staff going in and talk about these kind of things, but I think sometimes students listen better to their peers than they do to adults talking at them all day. Although I have to mention it, we had some great adults talking to our kids the other day, talking about advisory. We had a very successful career day where we had over 18 people, including our own Dr. Blake, came in and spoke with our high school freshmen and sophomores about different careers. Jared Harvey and David Wood did a great job putting it together. They first brought the kids into the pack and polled them, said, what kind of jobs are you guys interested in? What kind of careers would you like to learn more about? Took the poll data from them, created another form, sent it out to the community to see if we could have some people come into the school and share their expertise. How do they get to their job? What do they like about their job? What do they don't like? What do they not like about their job? What are some things they're proud of in their career? And it was great. I tried to bounce around to as many as I could, and it's just interesting for kids to sit down and hear different adult voices than their usual teachers talk about potential futures for them. So I thought it was a really great thing. And the next up for that school to work pathway or program is Job Shadowing Day, which is coming up for our juniors in the next couple of months. So be on the lookout for that.
I think that's awesome. I've shared with you some of my own concerns when I was younger of having kind of a broad vision of what types of jobs there were, and I think what the high school's doing with the various pathways is really awesome, and hopefully can just let kids know what their options are, whether they choose to be in the trades or continue on to college. So keep it up.
Thanks, Jeff.
So attendance 3 years ago when you came in, attendance with the Bright program and initiatives like that, getting, kids connected with the school, getting the kids that aren't connected with the school connected. I know you probably had a lag because of the pandemic with that. Are you able to re-engage that program and initiative now?
The break program, you mean?
Not not necessarily, but your attendance.
Oh, the attendance policy, yes.
Yes.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, so I don't think we're going to be held accountable for the attendance this year for Chronic
Yeah, but
Absence,
you're still
we put
interested.
in place.
It better be an interest of yours.
It's important for kids to be in school.
and-
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So we did reinstate the attendance policy, and we're enforcing it.
And it's working.
It worked before. I mean, it's we'll see what happens with a little bit more time goes by this year. We're 1 quarter into it. It seems like we only had 12 students who had to have their grades that they had earned changed to an F temporarily, I hope, because of attendance. So that's much better than it was the first time we did it a couple years ago.
Right.
Yeah. And it cut our chronic absenteeism in half.
Right.
Yeah.
Policy.
And actually, to speak a little bit to the Bright program, because that program has ended up being pretty instrumental in working with some of our students who were really struggling to come back post-pandemic.
Absolutely, yeah, and not just with concussions and things like that, but, hospitalizations for mental health issues. Those are obviously, we have a lot of referrals out there right now. So it's been a tough transition for some kids to come back from the pandemic. It's been tough for everybody, but for some students, they've especially struggled with it. So, yeah, we're fortunate to have our own in-house school adjustment counsel we added this year too, and Kelly Scott. She's been a great addition for us.
So I think your whole idea of bringing some freedom and joy back into school has been helpful for the kids. I like your idea of the kids being far away at lunchtime, but I know senior privilege is back. The success of the athletic teams and attendance at sporting events has been back, at least to some extent.
Yep.
It's just, like the middle school, it makes for a more vibrant environment, and I'm really happy that we're getting some of that back in the game.
I'm glad you mentioned the senior privilege. I was expecting to hear a whoop of pleasure as I clicked send on a mass email.
My daughter thought she had direct input into that email. I told him this afternoon he better get senior privilege going. The next thing he does, it pops up. So
Yeah.
she was really, really pleased with that. And,
Yeah.
and I think also, the kids are pretty happy that they're doing everything again, that they're being social to some extent again, and that all the things that were gone last year are back with masks.
Yep.
It's like everything in regular school with masks, which is a whole lot better than what it was last year.
Absolutely. We're here 5 days and everybody's here. So it's been great.
I think there's a lot of student-led hope to get things, positive again, 40% club, all these kind of little things that are kind of trying to bring little joys into people's lives. Kids are focused on it too. You're not alone in kind of trying to make it a happier place.
Yeah, I think it's a concerted effort. It's staff and students, and we've got some great. The senior class is a great class. Lots of character, a lot of funny, kind people that we should all be proud of. So,
and good women's athletes. As
yes, and apparently they're very good athletes. And hopefully we'll have a couple of state champions.
Yeah, we'll hope the fire truck
in a few
down.
days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, great.
Thanks, John.
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you
very
Tracy.
much.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming in. It's great. It's great to ask questions that wouldn't normally be asked, so thank you.
So they're both sitting there looking at me now, like, can we leave?
Yes, you can have
Yes, absolutely. John and Kathy know the drill.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thanks,
I'll see you in the
guys.
morning.
Brian, can I ask a loaded question about one of the things that came up in all these, which is the social justice, race equity piece? Do we have a policy in place on hiring for racial minority or specifying, trying to quantify bringing more racial minority educators into the position?
We do not have a policy on that.
Is that something
this
we could
point.
implement?
Yes.
Because everything I read says that you need role models in school.
Yep.
And most places that I'm working now specify targeting positions so that we can add more people of minority status, but
Yep.
however you want to
Yep.
describe it. But it seems to be the progressive way to change the district beyond just putting policies in place.
Yep.
Is to change some of the people through new hiring. And it's working everywhere I've seen it, and it seems to be one of the primary ways. It seems to stick more than even the education pieces that we're bringing forward to the kids. It's just having role models in place that will speak to it by being there.
Yep.
And we just don't have any policy there, and without a policy, you're not going to change things. So I don't know if that's something we can implement.
We actually had the beginnings of a conversation around that issue before this meeting this evening. The DEI group, the subcommittee met, or school committee, I should say, met this afternoon, and we had that conversation in terms of, what might that look like, and how do we attract a more diverse teaching population. We actually had one of the students ask why we didn't have more diversity in our teaching population, so it was a good conversation.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't have minority educators, you're not going to get more. You have to have some sort of outreach to that, but I think it's going to be an important piece to changing the complexion of the district.
Yep.
I agree, and I think the policy backdrop would be really helpful.
I know at my hospital, we're explicit in identifying to hire people. I think this one's targeted closer to me.
Is that why you're here?
So I think it's something you could implement pretty easily in the beginning of your hiring process, and it might be something to start thinking about when you're trying to set policies, or at least examine the hiring process for next year.
And I think too, in thinking about the term diversity and diversity, equity, inclusion, thinking about GLBT2, post 2 in the topic, and hiring, I think it's very important.
I think it's coming. If we don't do it, it's going to happen, so we've got to get on top of it.
It's very true. And thank you for supporting that work.
Okay. That's probably a good
Thank you.
segue right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. That's probably a good segue right now to talk about our school committee response related to conduct and DEI. I had hoped to have Tom Gallagher here, but he hasn't.
He's
Tom's been working every night.
Right,
I know he
right.
has.
So I
I
actually
has.
have a piece that Tom wrote for me to read, if we,
You want to start
if
with
you'd
that?
like. Sure, so I do we want to sort of set the stage as far as why we're doing what we're doing? Just
Well, I'd like to set the stage and thank Emily Cannon for bringing this up. I know, I think you brought it up 3 meetings ago. My attitude was Ipswich is, some of the problems that are occurring in other communities aren't occurring here. And, we're not that community. And that probably wasn't the best way to think about it on my part, and thank you for your persistence. So it is important to remind everybody in the district that we all live by certain codes of conduct, and we all live by the policies that this committee sets as well. So I know that's really broad, but our students are our representatives in other communities. Other communities come into us through where teachers live, and so it's important that we are an inclusive community. So.
Yep. So at
start with you.
the last school committee meeting, I did an overview of the DEI efforts that are happening in the district, and this is more in response to events that have been happening over the last couple of months in surrounding communities. And so, we wanted to take a closer look as a school committee and school administration around, okay, so what is Ipswich doing to prevent these types of issues from happening in our district? What's available to our students? What are our expectations around behavior for both students and staff? And so we have a statement that I think we're going to end with the statement from the school committee and discuss that and perhaps take a motion on it. But we wanted to talk a little bit about two pieces. One, what's happening with policy in our district and what policies we have. And I know, Pav, you had pulled out a number of policies that focused on anything to do with discriminatory practices, anti-hazing and those kinds of things. So if you want to just, list them off, we can spend time discussing them, or we can, simply list them off to let folks know that we do take these issues seriously. We do have school committee policy that governs a lot of what goes on. And then from there, I'd like to go into what's happening specifically in our sports program, and then we'll move to the public statement.
Sure, so I polled, they're grouped sort of by staff and then by students. So the first is AC, which is non-discrimination, and that is regarding all individuals in the schools, just a blanket non-discrimination statement. The second is a sexual harassment policy, ACAB. I'll give the letters if anyone wants to look them up. They're all on the website. The third is ACE, which is non-discrimination on the basis of disability. Fourth is GBA, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity policy. Then we have GBEB, which is staff conduct and ethics. We have JB, which is equal educational opportunities. These move more towards students now. JBB is educational equity. JICFA is prohibition of hazing. JICFA-E is a definition of hazing and duty to report. JICFB is bullying prevention, and JK is student conduct. And I believe that we're going to be reviewing these in the diversity, inclusion, equity and inclusion working group in the months to come.
Great.
As well as a couple which are unrelated but from the Masconomet school, which we're looking at adding maybe.
Okay. And then in terms of athletics, and this, I'll just read this so it's in the record, from Tom Gallagher, our athletic director. At the beginning of each sports season, all coaches are required to attend a meeting run by the athletic director. There's a lot of items covered in the meeting. Included is a section on policies and procedures. Relevant policies to this topic, which we cover, are the bullying, hazing, sexual harassment, mandated reporter, non-discrimination, and implicit bias, which is the NFHS course. Other policies coaches sign off on are regarding COVID, emergency action plan, concussion, CPR, AED, HIPAA, coaches education, opioid prevention, and chemical health. There's a paper sign-off for an annual statement of acknowledgement for student groups, teams, and organizations regarding the anti-hazing law, MGL Chapter 269, subsections 17 to 19. And the other policies and procedures we share are signed off electronically through Family ID. Coaches have full access to all of this information through a shared Google Drive folder. Starting this winter, all parents, student athletes, coaches, and administrators must take and complete a free online course through NAFHS called Implicit Bias. The description of the course is as follows. Implicit biases are the automatic reactions we have toward other people based on our past learning and expectations. Studies show that implicit bias affects the experiences of students in school athletic and activity programs. The NFHS has partnered with Project Implicit to bring you this course, Implicit Bias. Studies support that there is a relationship between implicit bias and real-world behavior, which highlights the importance of being aware of and managing your bias. This course defines and illustrates examples of implicit bias and provides research on how it impacts our society. There are sections in the coach's handbook that describe a coach's responsibilities, preseason, in-season, and postseason. The section talks about supervision of the team, as well as the requirement of having an adult or coach present at all times when the team assembles. The 2 paragraphs below are taken directly from the coach's handbook. Teams are required to have adult coach supervision at all times in all locations. This includes, but is not limited to, locker rooms, buses, fields, gyms, weight room, aerobics room. Teams without an adult or coach present are not to engage in any form of activity, organized or otherwise, until an adult or coach is present. Coaches with teams using the locker room facilities are responsible for their athletes and should be present and/or supervising regularly. The locker room is for changing and storing gear only and should not be used as a hangout. And then finally, student athletes and parents are also required to sign off the Student Athlete Handbook, which contains their acknowledgement of sportsmanship, anti-hazing, personal conduct, and a good citizen's rule. So that's from Tom Gallagher in our athletic department.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
The, what I think might be missing is the coaches talk to all of our athletes and about how we conduct ourselves as citizens of the world, and also that it doesn't go just to athletics. It goes to our music department. It goes to if there are any extracurricular activity where our, you know, it's always an opportunity to have an adult say what's right and what's wrong. So I'd love to see, you know, we can all take an online course, but to have your coach stand in front of you and talk to you about how one should act, or a reminder that, you know, that there are certain codes of conduct we all live by. So I think that's important as well.
I agree. I mean, there's lots of clubs, like the math team, top 10 of us goes to a math meet.
Right.
Is representing our school, you know, with supervision.
Yep.
That's, you know, similar to kids taking us to sporting activities.
I mean, I know coaches are required to do beginning of the season expectations talks.
Right.
It's one of the standards of coaching. So,
Right.
and I think all that would be included in that kind of discussion. And there's usually a parent meeting as well. There's usually a parent meeting or at least a parent outreach as well.
Good. You know, that's great. We need that. But it seems to have, you know, occurred in other communities where coaches haven't always done the job the way they should have done it. And I'm not singling out athletics either. Just reinforce that, you know, how one is expected to act out in the world and with respect for others. So I think that's really important.
I'd love to see the district take the proactive step of either asking parents to have a conversation with their kids about what's been reported that's going on in other districts and if they've had similar experiences in Ipswich. I'd love to see the district take the proactive step of asking athletes of, all students of either different backgrounds or origins or of color, of different orientation, of different identifications, how this, I mean, hearing about stuff like this going on is triggering for students who've been victimized by similar types of situations and maybe never spoke out about it. And that can be any student, either witnessing it, being a part of it, being expected to do it. And I think, you know, it would be nice to see the district do a little bit more. I mean, policy work is fine, but start to put a little more action behind it and take the added step of really engaging with students at particularly the middle school and high school level about whether or not have been witness to this type of behavior or victims of this type of behavior. I don't know how you'd craft that in a way that's safe for them to talk about, but maybe just a reminder that, you know, we don't have our heads in the sand. We don't think this type of behavior doesn't go on here. And we want to make them feel safe and seen and heard.
And that's beyond athletics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's student-wide. It's beyond
Exactly.
clubs. It's beyond,
I
you
get
know.
it.
Yeah.
It's an overarching theme.
Yeah. I mean, society's gotten pretty volatile lately on all sides of the fence and,
Yep.
you know.
Yep, agreed.
I know that Evan, when he was a senior, had an experience like that in a soccer game where some people were really slinging stuff at him. And I wrote a letter to the coach and to the superintendent of that school, and I never heard back.
Yeah.
And it was really, really awful. I was
Not here.
impressed. No.
Not-
It was an away game.
Oh, okay.
It was an away game, sorry.
Yeah.
No, not you. It was an away game. It will remain nameless where it was, but it was not a good response.
Yeah, I wonder what the school is, because we had a similar experience with another school.
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure that Ipswich is doing
Doing the
our
right
part
thing.
to educate our kids properly. And you have a statement that you've drafted, that I'd like you to read into the record, and then we can discuss. And and hopefully that we will affirm and vote to affirm the statement. So, Emily, do you have it up? I have it right here on a piece of paper. Would you like it?
Hold on. Hold, please. Okay. The Ipswich School Committee is committed to supporting and promoting policies that support an atmosphere that is inviting and safe for all students and employees, both during school hours and while participating in extracurricular activities. Recent events have highlighted and reminded us of the continued existence of hatred and hazing in our schools. While we understand these events are being investigated by the districts they occurred in, we, the Ipswich School Committee, wanted to take the opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to abide by our anti-hazing and anti-discriminatory policies and remind the public that any individuals found to be in violation of those policies will be held accountable to their school and town communities, as well as to those victimized by such actions. As always, the members of the Ipswich School Committee encourage students and staff to come forward as engaged citizens and report any violations of the policies reviewed here tonight.
So I had one edit I wanted to put in there in your statement, and that was at the end of the second sentence. It says the continued existence of hatred and hazing in our schools, and I wanted to put in our Commonwealth's schools, because you were speaking of schools out of district.
You know, Chubb, we can word it however you want, but I wouldn't qualify it. I think this conduct goes on, maybe more prevalently in other places, maybe more recognized in other places, but I think it would be foolish for us to think that for 1 second that we are somehow magically
right,
exempt.
I get that.
No, I think our Commonwealth schools includes us.
Yeah, I don't,
I think to just say our schools,
I know, but to Chubb's
But our
comment,
school
which
seems
was,
to just
focus on us.
focus on us.
well, we are the Ipswich
So
School Committee.
I just wanted to broaden the focus.
Yeah, and I think, however you want to do it, but again, I think that the place you start the work is right at home, it's internal, and,
Understood.
but, yeah, I don't think that, as long as it's,
I have an edit, in the first sentence, I'd get rid of supporting and, because you say support 3 words later, or 4 words later.
yeah, I noticed that
Just
when I
get
was
rid of-
reading it.
Just get rid of supporting and it works fine.
Kind of foster the atmosphere.
You just say promoting policies instead of supporting and promoting.
I mean, I think your original point, Emily, which is a good one, is that this has started with the recognition of incidents that have happened in other districts. Not that it doesn't happen in ours. I like Chubb. You know, and I think those events that happen in other communities, they might not technically affect us, but they do affect us. They don't directly affect us, but they do. I think that's your original point.
Yeah, and I
gets to that.
Yeah, and I think to my point, I think it does directly affect us. I think the conversations that happen in Ipswich families of color, when things like this are reported, are directly impacting our students. And it's those kids, I guarantee you, think of a word they heard or a look they got or an experience they had when they hear stuff. It is, I believe, directly impacting our students. And this is the way we're seeing all of our community and not just the dominant community. But yeah, I don't have an issue adding the Commonwealth schools.
Okay.
And we're going to remove two supporting and it said the Ipswich School Committee is committed to promoting policies that support an atmosphere. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
You can get rid of our if you want to change it without adding Commonwealth.
I just have one other comment. Should there be anything in here about how to come forward and anything about anonymity?
I think that's work that needs to take place as we revisit the policies in the working group. I think yes, absolutely, but I don't know that this is the forum to do it.
The level of detail needs.
Right.
Right, and I think that is something that you have to work pretty closely with administration and, there's criminal aspects to this behavior as well, so that's it's a more nuanced conversation.
There's something that I'm working on with a colleague on their website. They have on the front page of the district's website, they have a speak up button where you can click on the button and it sends it an email that can be anonymous. It's basically a Google form that would come directly to me. And so it can be, you can put your name on it if you want, or you can leave it anonymous just to report any, pretty much anything. But it's just a way for students, staff, community members to report concerns that they may have. So I'm digging behind the scenes with my fellow superintendent to sort that out and how he has it set up. So that may be coming in short order. That's a start.
Okay.
It's interesting, we all always see things through the prism, but with 5 daughters, my experience has been almost all gender-related issues that they've faced as in school. And you don't realize how common and almost casually dealt with that gender-based references and behaviors are frustrating for young women. It really is. It's a challenge, and the big problems my kids have experienced in sports in particular have been around fans saying things to them.
That unfortunately doesn't stop.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Move to Iceland.
Move to Iceland?
Yeah.
They don't have that?
They don't have, they do, it's the most inclusive environment I've ever seen.
Wow.
So,
Iceland?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, their prime minister's a woman.
And she's
think the majority
43 years
of
old, so there's no,
Yeah,
Aren't they really like homogenous community?
that's part of what
they
makes
are,
it easier.
they are, but we were talking
Yeah,
about,
women and
we were
men.
talking about, we were talking about gender issues. It's against the law, it's against the law to pay a man more than a woman, and it's enforced. It's all kinds of,
One day,
One
When we
day.
are old and gray,
When our
All
children
right.
are old and gray.
may our
Okay, so
granddaughters
we-
get
So is
moving
the
away.
intent to take a motion on this and
Yeah,
have
well,
this?
Move to support.
Move to support.
Second.
Moved by Hugh, second by Jeff. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say thank you for bringing it up and thank you for everybody being willing to talk about it and address it and for writing the statement.
Thank you. And Kate, you'll revise the newsletter with the two supporting and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already in there, but I'll-
No, you were just going, to no, the Commonwealth says,
Oh,
but
okay, yeah,
take out
I'll-
supporting and.
Yep.
All right. All those, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Emily and Bob, for the work, and Dr. Blake. Okay, by-board meeting review. We met with the Select Board Tuesday night. Multiple nights meetings remind me of the school building process the last time we all had this subject. I'd like to get some reflections from anyone on the meeting. If anyone has anything.
It wasn't unexpected. It played out pretty much as you might have guessed it might have played out. I don't think it advanced our cause.
I wish that was the meeting we'd hosted. That sort of public forum on held a specific meeting. I wish we had been the recipients of those comments instead of doing it at a by-board meeting, I think.
Because I think it might scare off the selectmen now.
Might what?
Scare them off.
Scare who off?
Select people, the select board.
Right.
That's part of the challenge. I think, Tom Murphy had a good point earlier tonight.
Yeah.
I think we could be running into an ambush at a town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are lots of reasons to be concerned. And again, broadening the group of people who thinks about this and votes on this would be helpful to us.
I would like to see some more advocates for including that at the meeting. That was one of my takeaways.
Well, I mean, this is part of the process that we wanted to do, right? Was
Right.
sit and listen. And if
Yeah.
we're not hearing more advocates for that location, that's something to learn from.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think at this point we want to be hearing any one or another thing. We just want to be hearing.
Right, and I
And that
didn't
was
hear
an
that.
opportunity
Maybe that's
to
the
do
way I
that.
said, my English might not have been right. I didn't see or hear many advocates.
Yeah.
It was
So-
making me think, pardon me, were you done, Jeff?
Of what?
Were you done? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I'm done.
It was making me think about how they've gone to ranked choice voting in Maine, like that, well, I know.
It's a trap.
But,
It's a trap.
but for something like
Ranked
this,
choice-
not that we
ranked
could
choice
do
voting?
it, but like maybe we could find consensus that way. Because if you know.
We tried that last time. We really did. We basically walked down a little path that was made for us by everyone who fought us until we got to a place where people didn't fight us. I mean, you can think about every place we looked at, Town Hall, Winthrop, Biolek, Mile Lane. We got chased away from every one of those sites. Chased away by neighbors or by people who didn't want traffic. Just chased away. And we just went to the only place that people didn't fight us on, but no one had passion for. And I just don't want to be placed in the same position, working hard to build a school where people didn't want it before.
That town hall building is really nice. That's all I kept thinking about.
The town hall
The
building?
town hall build, I understand it's on a dump. We don't know what's under there. I get it. Traffic, I get it.
Well, the
but
site is
the
nice.
site is so nice. That building is so nice.
That building would be ours.
We had, that's
We
where I went to
wouldn't take
middle
over
school.
the
Yeah.
town hall, would we?
Oh, that's just-
It was an undersized middle school. I mean, it was a 7th and 8th grade when I was there. It doesn't fit a big giant elementary building.
No, but I think the increasing population does revisit what numbers are we talking about.
Well, that's my comment, is I think there's a lot of numbers being thrown out about potential enrollment, which are based on not really
Nothing.
any facts or data. So I think we really need to nail down
Enrollment.
enrollment.
Right.
And
Right.
we can go back to NASDAQ, we can talk to the planner in short order and get a really more solid estimation based on data
Yeah.
that I think will.
Well, the best data has always been birth rates, and they're low.
But that doesn't take into account building, which is
I understand.
huge.
But building, my entire time here, every time we've had a building project, we've been panicked about how many, people we'll bring in. And it's never brought more than they project. It's always been like when we did Powder Puff over by the Y. It's 30 people,
But
And when we do this, it's 10 people. And then we do this, it's 10 people. It's like everyone has these projections of hundreds and hundreds of new kids, but they don't materialize that way. They come in little bits and pieces over a long period.
Right, but I also think that statement's not based on a lot of data either. I
No.
think we need data to back it up.
But every project had data.
Right, so let's get some for this project.
So, two points. The state enrollment data has tracked accurately the Ipswich enrollment over the past few generations. And it has been dropping its level, but I'd be very interested to see what the new NASDAQ enrollment data is. And coincidentally enough, because I am who I am, I pulled up the wrong school committee agenda this morning, and it was last year. I called Laura and I'm like, Laura, there's a mistake here. It says November 19th, it's the 18th. Well, that was last year. It was November 19th. The discussion point on the November 19th meeting of last year was the NASDAQ enrollment data. So we should be getting updated enrollments datas shortly, if that was something we discussed last year at
Yeah, I
this
don't
time.
think we have it yet.
No, but we should be getting it shortly, because it was on a meeting topic last year,
Around this time.
at one day different from this time. So I'm hopeful that's going to come
And those
out.
are projections.
Yeah.
How far out? 10 years?
No. How does
If
it?
we can ask her, can we ask them for?
No, NASDAQ data goes out 10 years.
Yeah,
Does
it
it
goes
go out
out,
10?
it goes out a ways, and I think what we can tell them, and I have told them, is I provided them with additional information so that they take into consideration the additional building and even the proposed project for Bruni's. So that they should be working that data into the, I'm sorry?
And Minebrook and Mile Lane.
Yeah, I already
Right.
told them that, because those are already happening, but the
Can
proposed
you get
project as
that-
well is what I'm saying.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the process. So then you get that information from,
From NESDEC, they send it to me.
right, but how do they know what Bruni's is and what Minebrook is, and how many houses it is?
They would be contacting the town as part of their study.
I would assume the planning department, Ethan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We've also had, and that should be a topic. It brought more questions for me than answers when we had Ethan Parsons come, and he should come and speak to us about enrollment, probably in the next few, in the next month or so, in the next few meetings. It could be an agenda topic. Enrollment as it relates to new developments. How many kids do you expect or how many units, and what's the, for the example, the Bruni's project, how many units do you project, and based on that type of product, how many kids do you expect out?
So there are tables that work pretty well for it. The other thing is pre-K education being integrated in public schools. I know that it's likely something will eventually get passed by the Biden administration that will support that. And that has to be integrated into any plan that we develop, because it's going to be there. And I assume that's going to happen shortly. So,
Yep.
We need to get a sense of the shape of what that legislation speaks to. for public schools, so we can plan for it. And that might be the big budget buster or the school buster that changes everything, is the extra 200-300 kids you get from 2 more class years of students.
Well, we're back to a public hearing on December 6th. So we have some work to do for that meeting. Is there anything else?
I would like, I think Ethan coming is a good idea.
Yeah.
To firm up that number as soon as we can, because I think that will, discussions are going a little rogue.
Yep.
And I'd like to have some.
I mean, the other issue is, again, timing listening sessions to those other discussions about
Correct.
population. So again, I just want to make sure that we are not stacking too much of the discussion for us or the presentations before us before we do the listening sessions.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, but we want to have up-to-date information and be informed at the same time.
Yeah,
Correct?
but is there an opportunity to do a listening session, before the end of the year? Maybe if we reserve time as opposed to having the planner come in the next few weeks, so that's all.
It's interesting, when my kids were young, we had close to 500 kids in each elementary school.
I know.
We
You
had
said-
high
I remember
400s
you
in
saying
both of the
that.
elementaries. And now, what are we, mid 300s? So it's really, it's a pretty
360.
profound difference.
360.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost
I
4.
pulled the historical data, and we were in the 800s and 900s for.
No, my kids were
20
young.
years.
We were in the nearly 400. We were
So
nearly
it is
500
going
kids.
down, but it's not.
It's actually creeping up a bit. It went down and now it's starting to
Yeah,
range up
last
a
2
bit.
years it's ranging up. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Does it make sense to transition our listening sessions into listening sessions on this point? Listening sessions about enrollment? No,
Or
about the
location?
school, location, anything really, like, we're making ourselves available monthly and it not turning out much of a, if any, participation from the community. I
Right.
mean, what if we redirect, reframe these meetings?
Or do you have a school committee meeting at Doyon School? Do you have a school committee meeting at Winthrop School and you specifically talk about the Doyon location or elementary locations at those 2 sites?
Yeah.
And try and open the forum. to
I
those
think
elementary communities.
at this point, what I would suggest is that we work with Bill Loge, and have him, set up and work with us around some listening sessions and figure out exactly what we want those listening sessions to be, and have guiding questions in some type of an organized format, so that we get the information from the community that we really need. That seemed to work well in the Amherst project. He was able to run a series of listening sessions for different constituent groups, different times of the day and evening, and it really was, there were listening sessions for the school committee where the school committee members could be there, but they didn't say anything. All they did was listen, and the facilitator sort of ran things to guide, the questioning and make sure that it wasn't, it didn't get off track. They were able to get through the questions that they needed answered. So that would be my recommendation, is that we don't try to do it ourselves, sort of, not haphazardly, but I would rather have somebody else work with us to keep that on track.
And we need to.
I have a
Yes.
question.
And get it moving is what is.
That's what yeah, get it moving.
Yes.
So is the plan for these to be in person? Because particularly for people with elementary school children, I think it would be of great benefit for us to do at least some of them Zoom, because I think it's much easier for them to participate if you've got young kids at home.
Yep.
Well, you've seen Connell on most of my Zooms, so.
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I commented to Kate that the buy board set up, that's the first time I had seen that hybrid
Yes,
really
that
well.
is
And actually,
cool.
the planning board is now doing hybrid appearances, and it works. So we may need to be in a different room, but that's a nice method to do. And I thought that Tony handled the communication of the questions from the Zoom people as well as the people
Yep.
in the room.
Yep.
That would work, yeah.
That's certainly something we can explore. I think it, the more, the more access that folks have and the more voices that can be heard, the better. So if it means, providing those opportunities, let's do it.
I'm wondering if we need 2 sets of listening sessions. One sort of now, soonish, and then we come back as a board with that information, feedback, and then maybe we are given a little bit more guidance, or we could come up with some of those sort of bounds of, not decisions, but sort of bounds of the discussion, and move the process along a little farther, and then have a second set of listening sessions later in the winter. I just feel like one set isn't going to be enough.
I think, yes, I agree. I think that there's, and I've said this before, there's a lot of work to do, there's a lot of discussions to be had, a lot of questions that need to be reviewed. A lot has transpired in the 5.5, 6 years since the last project. And so there are a lot of conversations that need to be revisited. And so, over the short term is, a conversation about the community, considering Biolek as a potential site for a building. And, there's other questions, we're still looking, with the enrollment numbers, what is, are we looking at 1 school versus 2 schools? What does the configuration look like? Then you get into the location discussion. So, I mean, there's a lot of work to do, and it's all starting anew now.
Right, but I'm coming around to Emily's thought of the first set of listening sessions not having a lot of bounds on them, and just listening to, because I think, I think there's some value to that. Without a real goal of consensus at that point, it's just kind of taking stuff in and going from there.
Okay. Yeah.
Should we frame, and I like doing like looser listening sessions earlier, and then, I mean, I'm trying to think, I feel like you just named the three bigs, right? Location, configuration, and size. A listening session for location. We're not talking about anything else, just let's talk about location options. A listening session on configuration, the pros and the cons of any configuration that people want to discuss. And then size, a listening session on size. What's too big? How would that, just try and at least, we do seem to have some organization around the 3 major issues that people want to discuss. So maybe just try and give those broad boundaries to 3 separate listening sessions. Because then I think we'll have a better idea of, okay, at least from the listening session, location A really seemed to have a ton of support. They're so intertwined. Those 3 things.
Right.
I know, but
Right.
that's what I have trouble with. Because you can't talk about one without.
I think Bill's going to have to control that
Yeah.
timing and
Yep.
framing. And I think it's particularly hard if you have a parent who can come on one evening and they've got concerns over size and location, that they can't speak on one, they're asked to come to another meeting.
Yeah.
So I think we got to lean on, the facilitator there and let them know
Yep.
that that's something we'd like to be able to have each of those segregated discussions, but having them happen over the course of a single night and do that multiple nights.
Yeah, it just seems like you go down the rabbit hole a little bit. Like, well, I would like this, but only if you can do it this way. If you're going to do it that way, then I want to do it. Like, let's do some
Yeah.
sort of
Yep.
very general framework. But yeah, then maybe it's the same listening session 3 different times.
I will reach out to Bill tomorrow, if it's okay with the school committee, and we'll see if we can get those started. And how soon,
Wow.
okay?
Great.
All right.
Sounds great. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, next item, Ipswich Educators Association ESP contract. We met in executive session and discussed the ESP contract, and in this open session, we need to vote to accept it. So may I have a is there a specific motion?
There is not, just a
No,
motion
it's
to
just a
approve.
May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the ESP contract.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All those, we'll do a roll call vote on this. Dr. O'Flynn?
Yes.
I say Dr. O'Flynn, and everyone else I say their name, sorry.
You can
Emily?
say Attorney Cannon.
Attorney
There you
Cannon.
go.
There you go.
Yes.
Mrs. Elliott.
Nurse Cobb, yes.
Nurse Needler.
Nurse Needler. Attorney Poirier.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Witten. Yes. So that's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to sign the, and that gives me, I'm going to sign the contract and this memorandum of agreement. I'll sign two. So you can have one and they can have one.
Yep.
Is Becky here to sign those?
Becky is here to sign those.
Okay.
She's not hanging out with us at 9:15 at night for any other reason.
Teacher Slaughter.
Yep.
President Slaughter.
President Slauson, I think, would be.
No problem. And there, you can have one and we can have one. Do you have a copy of this for her? Or just the signature
They're
page?
just,
You have a copy in your folder too, right?
yeah. You have a clean copy already? Okay.
You
all right.
sure?
Yeah, okay.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you very much,
excellent.
Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice
Becky.
night.
I'll leave that over.
I know that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Get that taken care of.
Okay, Cheryl, Herrick, Stella, you're up, budget timeline.
All right, thank you. So I've presented to you a draft budget timeline. The format looks maybe a little bit different than what you're used to seeing, but the dates are, pretty in line with the dates that the, standard budget development. So provided you're okay with this timeline, we'll be sending the spreadsheets out to the building principals on November 29th. And then they'll be sending their completed budget worksheets back to us a month later, so December 30th. And then the budget review process will go on throughout the month of January, and then budget presentations in February, final revisions in March, and then town meeting in May.
Is there anything different from this timeline than prior timelines that we've had?
No.
Looks the same. Bean County's gonna be April, not March,
Okay.
typically.
It's worked before.
Move to support if we have to. We don't have to, really, right?
No.
This is it.
No.
No. And you have a finance update. Is there any other any questions on the timeline? It really has worked before. February and March are pretty busy, really busy, and so hopefully it goes well and we hit these benchmarks.
So I'm looking, I didn't review this prior to this evening, but we're going to have an issue on February 17th.
Is that
We're going to need to
vacation
change
week?
that.
School vacation.
It's not school vacation week,
Day
but
before, Thursday
but
before.
that is, right, but that's, the Superintendent's National Conference is that day, and you're out that day as well in the calendar. So
Maybe we
we'll
could
have to
do that
adjust
meeting
that.
on the 16th, or so we can move the meeting to make that happen.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, yeah, we'll look at it.
So Tuesday
So
night.
hold on the hearing, yep.
And budget memo, history sent. Okay, cool. And how about a finance update for us? You sent our budget sheet.
Yep, so I sent out the most recent budget report. Again, as in prior months, we're still tracking
I'm sorry.
a little bit less on expenditures to date compared to last year. I was kind of digging into that a little bit more, and part of that actually is because we haven't negotiated our contracts yet. We have the raises sitting in a pool of money unexpended. So if you take that into account, we're really kind of on pace, as you would expect, to where we were last year. As we've mentioned before, there have been expenses that have cropped up, like they mentioned today, the EL teacher, and moving that from a 0.5 to a 1.0. But those types of maybe unbudgeted or unexpected expenditures are being supported by, our COVID and other grants that we're getting. So it's not affecting the appropriate budget.
Good. Any questions for Cheryl?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do realize that you're running a $33 million operation here, so.
Well, I used to run a $65 million one, so
Really?
I can handle this one.
Yeah, good.
Good answer.
No, but it's always, we always have the fewest amount of questions, and it's
I know.
Put that in the
significant, it's a significant amount of
Yeah, so
money.
I always do crack up at town meeting, usually when you run through the budget, they might ask something small, and then, they're like, yep, 65 million, yep, all right, good, done.
Yeah, and then you're fighting over a pickup truck.
Right,
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
I hear you. Okay, back to the agenda. Any other questions for Cheryl tonight? Okay, Superintendent's Administrative Report.
All right, so it's been a very busy 2 weeks since our last meeting. We started planning for our district review in the spring. Laura and I attended a webinar on the process and the expectations so that we can start pulling all of the pieces together. There's a lot of data that they'll be requiring. Some of it we have readily updated, and other pieces we're going to need to do some updating during the course of the year. I participated in a meeting last week with Seth Moulton and folks from his office regarding children's mental health issues as we come out of the pandemic. I had 2 administrative team meetings. In one of the sessions, we completed and shared a calibration exercise for the observation and evaluation of our teachers. In the meetings, we also discussed the strategy for district improvement, the presentation that you saw and participated in earlier this evening, and just some discussion around our growing EL population and programming needs. Ipswich Aware had their monthly meeting that I was a part of. I've had several conversations and meetings with members of the community over the last couple of weeks on a variety of issues. I'm keeping up to date with our ELL population and additional families that are moving into town in the coming weeks, and discussing their specific needs. It's happening on a couple of different levels. I'm meeting regularly with our EL teachers as a group, and then meeting specifically with Amy Sullivan and Lisa Nyland around some particular families that are in the Winthrop school community. I also attended the middle school council meeting last week and meet regularly with our elementary principals. Chubb and I met with the fire chief to discuss any concerns about the potential use of Biolek Park as a potential school site in the future, in light of the public safety building being in that area. We had hoped that the police chief was able to join us, but he was not available that day. Cheryl and I are continuing to work through some personnel issues and the hiring of a part-time HR and benefits person that the school committee had approved. I met with the director of technology, the athletic director, and tomorrow morning I meet with the facilities director to get updates in each of those areas. I attended a luncheon at Whittier on Tuesday to continue discussing the expansion of opportunities for our seniors. This goes in line with the work that Jonathan was talking about earlier this evening. We're looking at additional opportunities for our seniors, in particular, in the last, say, 6-8 weeks of their high school career, to see if it's possible to set something up where they head over to Whittier to get some experience and exposure to some of the trades, because then once they graduate from high school, they can attend night classes over there and perhaps get into the trade. So we're just looking at additional ways to support our students that might not be going to college. And so it's a program that Whittier is looking to get off the ground. Subcommittees the last couple of weeks included communications and budget that you'll hear about shortly. Had a meeting with Amy Gregory, our technology integration specialist, to review her goals and plan moving forward this year. We attended the BI-board meeting on Tuesday night with the select board. Yesterday, I participated in the high school career day presentations with 17 other people from around the greater Ipswich area, representing different professions. What John didn't say in his discussion was that one of the other pieces to it is to build partnerships with a lot of those folks that came in as potential sites for our students to go as part of the bridge program and internships going forward. So that there was a multifaceted reason for inviting who was invited to participate. So, and it was a great day, a great morning. Just prior to this meeting, I met with the EL staff, again discussing curriculum, discussing programming for our students. I'm not sure if it was Kathy, I think it was Kathy, mentioned a program that the middle and high school EL teacher is getting off the ground with her students. She's really taken that entire program to a different level already this year. She's just doing an amazing job. And then we had a meeting with the DEI group after that. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with John Blair from the Electric Light Department to discuss potential electric vehicle charging stations for both cars and buses in town. And I met earlier today with the sustainability class here at the high school around a potential location for a charging station here on campus. And it's actually in a different location than we had previously talked about, and ran into all sorts of hurdles, and I think this one's going to work. So I'll talk to John about that tomorrow morning, and at some point over the winter, probably December, the kids want to come and talk to the school committee about it. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for them. And then tomorrow afternoon I have the North Shore Superintendents meeting, so I'll be out of the office attending that. That's it.
Thank you.
So I want to give you a quick COVID update just because of changes lately.
Yes.
In the last week at Beverly Hospital, we've had 30 to 40 people a day coming in with COVID to the ER. We have 30 or 40 people coming a day with COVID to the ER. We have 30 people in the hospital now with COVID. They're starting to restrict admissions for elective surgery and things like that. Our local positivity rate is now 6% within our hospital system getting testing.
Oh.
So these are all changes for the worse, considerably worse. And of the admitted patients with COVID, about 2/3 are still unvaccinated, about 1/3 are vaccinated.
Yeah.
So COVID's back. I think when Jonathan and everyone were talking about lunches, kids being together again and close again, lunches now at the high school, at least, a lot of kids without masks sitting around tables eating lunch really close. And we have to be a little bit concerned that we're going to run into a positivity issue here in the district.
Yep.
So it may be prudent for us to kind of look at our vulnerable areas, start being a little circumspect about what we're doing because we've gotten away with it, and understand that we're likely to see more positivity over the next few weeks.
Yep.
Based on what I'm seeing in the hospital right
Yep.
now. The other thing is, I don't know if we have any test and stay in place type
We
of.
do.
Yeah, so.
We do.
That kind of thing we
Yep.
need to be.
So I can talk to that a little bit. So I'm looking up the numbers. So the reporting that I have to do officially for the state goes from Thursday morning to Wednesday night at 5, and then I report whatever the week, the Monday through Friday or Friday through Friday is in my Friday afternoon messaging. So the two numbers may not always match up, but my reporting for the state yesterday, we had 5 active cases. We have one teacher at the Doyon School and 4 students that I reported had tested positive. And then this afternoon, I know there was 1 positive case at the middle school that was entered into our database. So we are.
Where were the 4 students?
I'm sorry?
Where were the 4 students?
All at Doyon.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
wow.
Yeah, they were all at Doyon. Different classes. I think there was 1 set of siblings there. In town, our positivity rate, let me get here. The positivity rate in town is 2.5 this week. It's up from 2% last week. There's currently 37 cases, which is up from 16 active cases last Thursday. So
Our last meeting, it was 1.6.
Yep. So we are seeing an increase. The good news is that as the vaccine is becoming available for the younger students, we do have a lot of parents who are getting their students vaccinated, and so that information is coming in.
Are they attributing the increase in breakthrough cases to the Delta Plus strain, or is it just Delta?
So, from what I understand, they're attributing the breakthrough to Salem. No, it's Halloween.
We have lower numbers than you do,
Oh,
thank
I
you
know.
very much. 18 in my hospital.
So, we don't know, but we're definitely seeing a big bump. I don't think they're attributing to any particular variant. But, and it's I don't know if you guys are know what's happening at the hospital level, but most of our tertiary hospitals aren't accepting any transfers and haven't for several months. So car accidents, things like that, we really have to keep in-house. Most people who have illness, we have to keep in-house. We can't transfer downtown anymore. Where we did a lot of transferring during the runs of COVID where we got overwhelmed, we can't do it because all those places are understaffed and they won't take more people. They have long wait lists. So we're really, a lot of patients, I know I saw a few patients in the ER yesterday who were sent to Gloucester to be admitted to the hospital because it's right now no COVID hospital for us. So we're sending more patients up that way, and so these kind of strategies that we are doing right now are things that we did during high COVID.
Yep.
We're learning, but it's not a great position to know that we've got kind of the bump coming again, and it feels like it's coming fast. Like you can feel the doubling rate in the hospital. You can see the ERs crowded. You can see people in the hallways. You see the doors that are sealed because of COVID. So all that stuff is starting to manifest again in the hospitals.
So we'll redouble our efforts in terms of, making sure that kids are wearing the masks appropriately.
Yeah,
and
hopefully all
at
of it's
the
blunted
right time. Right.
because of the vaccine.
Yep.
But
yeah,
we have a vulnerable population because they're not vaccinated.
We've done.
They won't get super sick, but because they're not vaccinated, they'll transmit and they'll carry.
Right. And we've done a great job so far. Our staff has been outstanding in terms of of, you know, working through all these issues, and I don't want to lose that at this point in the game.
I like the
So-
freedom too, the kids are
Yep.
happy.
But I think it's worth a healthy reminder to families, you know, whether it's your Friday message or the principal newsletters, that, you know,
There's been a
numbers are
local
rising.
increase in
Mhm.
COVID, and we should
Yep.
take all due precautions, and
And
Right.
start to
That'll-
rethink things like.
That'll be
birthday
going,
parties.
that'll be in my
Holidays.
messaging tomorrow.
especially the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think people have become a little lax.
Mhm.
If we want to enjoy all these extracurricular activities we've been talking about all night, we gotta stick it towards.
Right.
unfortunately.
Yep. Okay.
Anything else? All right, subcommittee working groups and liaison reports. Athletics?
We've done that.
Okay. Budget, you met. And
We
Greg's
did
not
meet.
here, so you guys are up tonight.
So Kate's organized a meeting for the 30th that will introduce our operational override to the community, and hopefully get some leaders to take that forward on a community level while we continue to formulate our plan. We've got a better sense going into the tri-board meeting about where our numbers are and what we'd be looking for in an override that we should probably discuss a little bit at some point. And I think we've discussed some of that before. And we also discussed whether deferring the override another year was the smart move, or whether to go for an override this year is a smart move. So those were important discussions that we had the other day.
So what I took away from my listening session, was that if we don't achieve an override, the next one is very painful and very short, and just,
Or very big.
or very big, correct. So,
It would be useful if you had one of the calculators in front of you in discussing this, but if we choose to go for the override this year, because we still have some reserve in our stabilization fund, we're able to ride that reserve a little further because we never get really, really low in our stabilization fund. And because we have that extra year of whatever the override is in the kitty, it stretches out the time of the override. But if we go just one more year in, because we are spending about more than $2 million more than what we're taking in, suddenly we lose all of our cushion, and the capacity for us to build a stabilization fund and then deplete a stabilization fund over the course of an override isn't there. And so what would give us a comfortable 5-year override next year would give us maybe a 2-year override the following year, because we'd lose basically 1 year of the override. So it makes a lot of sense, even though we won't be down to zero in our reserve funds, to go for the override next year, so that we'd only have to do it once over 5 years, as opposed to go for it the following year and then have to do it again maybe just a few years later, and have that perception that we're not making the most of our money.
but the message is the following year, that same money doesn't stretch nearly as far.
And that's primarily because we lose a year of the money.
Right.
And we basically, because of our contracts with our educator unions and our other workers, and because we only get 2.5% or 3.5% more from the town every year, and we spend 4.5% more every year on salaries and benefits, we end up falling behind by $600,000 to $800,000 a year. So we really do need what we get from the town plus $600,000 to $800,000 every year. And the way we make up for that is we get a little bit extra from the state every year, and a couple $100,000 here or there, which we've accounted for in our formula. And we probably need an extra $500,000 plus a year to support our budget. And over 4 or 5 years, that accumulates, and so it's a serious thing, but it's an every year thing, so we're always falling behind. So if we lose 1 year at $2.5 million, then we lose 5 years of potential override. And that's the challenge. And again, it's pretty easy to illustrate with a calculator. We should probably do that at some point with a focused discussion of the override, but that's, the math is a little bit scary. When we set out the override, we recognize that at the far end of the override, we'd be walking into it spending more than we're taking in because we've had a stabilization fund to cushion it. And the challenge is that it makes us vulnerable on the far end of the override to relatively catastrophic rapid drops in our income. So that's the challenge. And so I think it's worth us going for the override this year. And with the winds of BILAC and everything else, there might be particular challenges. We have to consider that when we're bringing things to the town and to the community, what its impact might be on our budget and our operational override, which I really think should go this year.
Yeah, and I was the one that keeps bringing up, should we delay it, but Steve has convinced me with his expertise and walking me through the calendar. That
It's dangerous.
That I didn't understand,
Yeah.
right?
The problem
It's
is,
fiscally responsible to do it this
the
year.
reason we did the override historically, which you don't have the great perspective on, but having lost a bunch of overrides in the past and made very, very painful cuts in the past, the reason we have overrides is for stability. It's not for a payday for the teachers. It's not for anything, but we want to be able to deliver education to the students at the level they need, and not be in danger of making catastrophic cuts which disrupt the education of the students. And so when you make our budget vulnerable, you're making our whole program dramatically vulnerable. It's the main weakness we face, is the funding problem of public education with public sector unions. So we have to prepare for that. And the way to prepare for it is, I think, to put an override forth next year and hope it passes and assume it'll pass. Because if it doesn't look as good the next year. It makes it a harder pitch for you guys, and it makes it a harder long-term picture for you. We've seen a well-funded budget lets you focus on other things, which is what we should do. And if you're not focused on those other things, the budget is all you do at school committee, and it's not fun. It's not as good. So we want to avoid that.
Okay, thank you.
We're going for an override.
Yeah.
At least so far.
Yeah. Thank you. And November 30th, if anyone can think of some folks that would be good on the override committee.
Yeah. So I think we want to recruit
need to reach
leaders
out.
for the operational override, people who are leaders in our community who are interested in pitching people and getting things going. And we'll give them the marching orders, we hope.
That's election day, I'm just
Perfect.
pointing that out. People might be busy.
Do you have 12 concerns that day too?
The 1,200 people who voted the last time.
I'm just saying I'll be holding signs.
Okay,
What? The negotiations right now?
communications.
Great. You don't have to.
You met.
We met.
We don't want a majority of the school committee.
We met on Tuesday. We've tried to finalize the content of the school committee newsletter. Things have been dribbling in, and I think I put hopefully the final version in your folders this morning. I didn't hear any edits to them. So let's see, there is a piece on citizens' comments queries in there. There's a piece on the budget subcommittee update. There is an overview of the strategic planning working group. We decided to hold on highlighting some of the Traverso Weatherall grants because we felt like we had a full newsletter and we wanted to wait until we maybe had some more information from the current round. So we will defer that. Not that it wasn't you. We decided to do it, not to. We'll have a better update in January than we would in November. So we pushed that item off. So I think that is ready to go. I edited the statement that we just talked about earlier. So unless anyone has any edits to it,
Push the button.
that
We
will
don't
go
have to vote on
out
this, do
tomorrow.
we?
Nope,
No.
cheers.
Okay.
That's your committee.
Looks great.
We talked about our meet and greets. Greg and Pav are hoping to hold the next meet and greet with school committee members let's say early to December rather. Hopefully at the YMCA. Date and time to be decided. And then we talked about ideas for January, not finalized yet. We are going to try to attend some Fry's meetings. I think we missed November meetings because I think they overlapped with meetings this week. So Bob and I are going to reach out to the Fry's chairs again and try to get on their next meeting December or January, just to tell them a little bit about school committee. We talked a little bit about a PR plan for the school committee that we talked about at the last, that kind of came up at the last meeting. We just threw around some ideas. We're not ready to move on it, but had a nice discussion about it. And that's it.
Great. Thank you. The newsletter looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kate? Okay, moving on. Mutual Concerns is meeting in a week or two.
Next week.
Next week.
Next week, Tuesday.
Negotiations has met. Operations hasn't met. Has policy met, Paul?
No.
Okay. And then we have our working groups. Any working group met recently since our last meeting? I don't think so. I missed the climate meeting to go as a liaison to go to the by-board meeting, so I didn't make that. Anybody else met as a liaison? Okay. New business.
I don't know if it's a liaison report, but I did attend the Mass Association of School Committees.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
excellent.
Wonderful. So that was on Saturday morning, and there were the 9 resolutions that the school committee had supported here. The statewide delegation passed all of them, 3 of them without discussion, including Resolution 7, which was regarding restoration of school committee oversight in receivership districts, which this committee rejected 0-6. It passed without discussion. So it was interesting. There is certainly a dynamic between rural and urban districts that came out in some of the discussions. The hybrid conference all week kind of had some challenges with audibility and issues, but overall I thought the sessions I attended and the delegates assembly were all as well.
That same dynamic is on the listserv as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's got to end.
It's got to end.
Some people, it's like 50 emails a day.
Can you just sign up for one, like, summary at the end of the day, the way?
I don't mind the substantive debates, but the nasty overtones and like pointed personal comments is getting to be a little bit like, if that's what this is turning into,
tough.
I don't need
tough.
that. I got Facebook.
No, you know what? It hasn't been that, Emily, that's just in the last 2 months that's come up.
All right,
So that isn't historic. That hasn't been occurring.
It's getting worse.
Okay, so, good, thank you, Jeff, for that.
Thank you.
All right, new business, does anyone have any new business? I have a piece, but anyone else? Okay. There was an open meeting law complaint, which we're in the process of addressing now. And we discussed it at our executive session.
Okay.
Vouchers and bills.
I think we're all set.
Mm-hmm.
Consent agenda I have right here. Look at that. Move the Ipswich School Committee to approve the following items. The total gift of $42,134.61 from the Burley Fund for the 2 elementary schools, to be divided equally with no additional restrictions, just that it is for the elementary schools. It's a nice gift.
Yeah.
A $2,500 transfer dated 11/4/2021 awarded to Lori LaFrance by the EPA as one of 5 nationwide recipients of the Presidential Innovation Award for Environmental Educators, to be deposited into the IHS Gift Sustainability account. And this was discussed earlier in special acknowledgements. Another great award from a great school. $1,000 check from Kim H. Nguyen, class of 1992, for student supplies at the high school. to be deposited in the high school gift account. Another nice, thoughtful gift. So that's it there. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask a
We have
question?
to
Go ahead.
accept the consent items.
I have to vote on that,
Oh, we gotta
right?
vote the consent, Jen.
Second.
All those in favor? Sorry.
Can I just ask a question?
You have something? Yeah.
I just have, what's the Burley Fund? Am I supposed to know what that is? Because I don't.
We all know what it is.
You're the only one who doesn't know.
You don't know? Okay, well.
So
tell me.
Manning Fund is for the libraries.
Yep.
I don't know what Burley Fund's for. Elementary's obviously. So Burley Elementary School is the elementary school I went to,
But, like, okay.
K through 3 in the day.
Back when the year.
None of you guys remember, but we had like 5 elementary schools, as some people said was a standard model apparently.
So nobody knows what it is.
I will get that answer, I'm not sure.
Boone Hall,
I'm not sure
Chatswell.
offhand. Yep,
Going on Winthrop and Burley.
you do? Oh, okay, all right. So we do have
We
contact.
Yes.
To give you a little bit of context.
Burley.
so-
The newest
so,
person knows what it is.
I don't know who set it up, but it originally was a trust that was set up and a bank administered the funds, and it was the school would apply to the trust and they would get disbursements for the funds. And initially it was supposed to be for like library books, but specifically for the 2 elementary schools. And then the trustees decided there hadn't been a lot of activity, and there was, then they decided to basically close the trust, close the account, and just disperse the remaining balance to the 2 elementary schools.
Really?
With no, kind of tie, they could basically use it for whatever they wanted. The only designation was that it had to be split between the 2.
So is
So
this
this
a
is
one-time gift? All is
one time.
gone?
So this
Yeah.
is
Can
it, it's
we
over.
find out who they are and maybe find out more about the Burley Fund? Maybe, Brian, can we find out? That's a substantial
I can
gift.
research it.
I know.
That might be the
Yeah.
biggest gift we've gotten as a district.
And I think Janet looked up the history, and I might be confusing this, but it like goes way back, and it was someone who gave $500 like super long time ago, and it's just been building.
It's
and
turned to
building.
42,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
When
When you were, back when you were in school at the Burley.
The Burley was a great school,
Oh,
a neighborhood school,
yeah,
right in the middle.
nice.
Where was it?
Nice.
You know where Carlton Island lives?
Yep.
Right there, right across the street. That big brick building, literally
Condos.
like right on Mount Pleasant.
Yep.
Oh, that's
at the very
right.
top of the hill.
Yeah.
And I walked there.
In
through
the
my-
snow.
Through my wife's backyard.
All right,
Okay, I can research that, sir.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Good night, Ipswich, thank you.
Go Ipswich, go Tigers.
Go Tigers!
Saturday.
You get to dress in white. I think we're playing we're the other seat.